The Tiger. Vindictus, Alpha of Terranova. The mating ceremony was tonight, and Terranova pulsed with hunger. Fires burned in the valley, drums echoed through the hills, and every beast waited to see who would claim and who would bleed. I couldn't stop moving. The bonfire smoke stung my throat as drums pounded through the valley, calling us to the mating grounds. My claws shredded the dirt with every pass. Breath burned in my chest, too tight, too wild. Years of holding back. Years of giving Jorin, my perfect golden brother, everything first. But Jorin was dead, and Atticus was still here. The gods could decide what they pleased. My beast had already chosen. Atticus was mine. I was the Alpha, the last heir of Terranova. My brother's bones rot in the sun while our people starve and the gods demand blood. Let them choke on their hunger. I won't bow. I'll take what's mine. Atticus, the trembling Omega with storm-colored eyes and iron in his spine. He thinks I'm a monster. Maybe I am. But even monsters have dreams. Let the lions roar. Let the wolves bare their teeth. Let the gods burn if they stand in my way. Tonight, I claim him. And in the dark, the witch awakens. Mina, Jorin's cursed bride. Eyes like blood, tongue like venom. She won't stay quiet for long.
Welcome to the official YouTube channel of J.K. Jones, where listeners can enjoy romance audiobooks for free. Please like and subscribe to stay up to date with the latest releases. This audiobook is protected by copyright law. No part of it may be reproduced, distributed, or transmitted in any form or by any means, including recording or electronic methods, without the prior written consent of the author. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, is purely coincidental. To support ongoing content creation, consider joining the Patreon. Every contribution helps keep the stories alive.
Chapter 1. Atticus? What did you say? I could barely believe my ears from my best friend Magnus as we stood in line at Starbucks for our weekly injection of caffeine. Magnus rolled his eyes, dressed in a crisp black suit with his signature scowl locked firmly in place. You heard me, Atticus. No, I didn't. I think I had wax in my ears or something. He moved up in the Starbucks line, adjusting his jacket like he was posing for Forbes Alpha Monthly. His brown hair was perfectly styled, and the suit clung to him in all the right ways. As an alpha, and my best friend, he could have at least repeated himself instead of being a smug overachiever. Bro, the board approved it yesterday. You were there. I was technically there. But I'd spent most of the meeting daydreaming about playing Halo and figuring out how to beat that annoying sniper level. Business dealings? Not exactly my specialty. It's not that I didn't want to be involved. I was just, well, kind of useless. I was the head of Tiger's Enterprises mostly for show. Everyone knew it. The board knew it. The janitor knew it. Honestly, even the stray cat down the street probably knew it. The line shuffled forward, and I almost tripped over my own feet, but Magnus caught me by the elbow with a sigh. You have the reflexes of an elephant. Thanks, I muttered. Elephants are graceful in some cultures. I was probably the worst excuse for a CEO the corporate world had ever seen. After my father died, they handed me the company, his company, and it had been a mistake on every possible level. I was useless. Everyone knew it, even if they were too polite to say it out loud. The board only kept me around out of respect for him, not because they believed I could lead. An Omega in charge was always going to be a temporary solution, a placeholder, until someone more capable came along. At first, I told myself I'd prove them wrong, that I'd rise to the challenge and make my father proud. But the harder I tried to hold things together, the more everything slipped through my fingers. Meetings blurred together. Decisions piled up. The world he'd built felt too big, too sharp, too complicated for someone like me. And deep down, I knew the truth. This company had never really been mine to run. Jorin was dead, and his brother, Vindictus, was taking over. My entire body froze. My breath caught in my throat. Vindictus? Here? This was my father's company, damn it. And now it was being handed to an insecure, overgrown jockstrap with all the brainpower of a wet paper napkin. I'd hated Vindictus since we were cubs. He was a brute then, and he's a monster now, louder, meaner, and terrifying in ways that made my fur stand on end. Magnus's eyes flashed, and his lips curled, hinting at his fangs. Whatever. Are you coming hunting tonight? Me? Hunting? If he meant small butterflies, sure, but I knew exactly what he meant. Tonight was the official mating ceremony for Vindictus to choose his mate, and everyone from the clan was supposed to attend. It was some archaic Tiger Lord tradition wrapped in a velvet sash of ego and testosterone. The ceremony was hosted by the Iron Fang Alliance, and as members of the Praetorian Bloodstripe clan, we were expected to show up in full form or face the wrath of tradition. It was a stupid ceremony, and I had no idea why we all had to go. Who cared who Vindictus mounted? The guy was a total prick. My alpha and, as of yesterday, possibly my new CFO over at Clawthorn and Steel, Beast Law Division. But I didn't care. He could mate a cactus for all I cared. Lucretica Talonheart, our firm's director of predatory acquisitions, was gunning to be his mate, and she never let anyone at the office forget it. Not a single morning passed without her strutting through the bullpen like she already had his bite mark on her neck. She even updated her email signature to Future Mrs. Vindictus, like it was a damn job title. I adjusted my tie, already dreading tonight. Hunting in this context meant being herded into a velvet-draped arena, pretending we all loved being part of this teeth and tradition nonsense while Vindictus sniffed out his next victim. Bride. No. Why? I asked suspiciously, narrowing my eyes. Magnus laughed, the sound low and mocking. Your mom would kill you if you didn't come. You're of the Tigress lineage, Atticus. You absolutely have to be there. I groaned. The Tigress lineage wasn't just some fancy name. We were descended from one of the oldest matriarchal bloodlines in the tiger clans. Back when tigers were still solitary, scattered across the wilds, my ancestors had already realized strength came in numbers. It was the tigresses, powerful, strategic, deadly, who united the fractured prides into clans that could survive together. The age of lone rogues faded. Mating alliances formed. Territories were marked and defended by entire coalitions. All thanks to women like my great-grandmother, Maeva the Stripebreaker. It had been working, for a time. But now, everything was falling apart. Famine was sweeping through the supernatural realm like a curse. Asterion, the ancient bull lord, had taken his herds to safer lands, leaving us meatless and scrambling. We could barely scrape together enough to offer up to the old gods, and without those offerings, things were bound to get worse. The council, wise old beasts in silk and bone crowns, thought electing a new alpha would bring favor back to the tigers, because clearly all it takes is a new guy in charge to solve starvation. So here we were, forced to play along with the pageantry. Jorin had been a good alpha, strong, smart, merciful, but Cassian and Noah from the Noble Wolf Pack had torn him to shreds during peace negotiations like they were shredding a chew toy. That left a power vacuum the size of a crater. And guess who slithered into it? Vindictus. The board, aka the Council of Crusty Old Tiger Lords, had nominated him as our salvation, our future, our savior. I had other words for him. None I could say in front of my mother without getting disowned. He isn't even here yet, and he's already trying to ruin my life. Don't worry, I'll protect you, Magnus said smoothly, wrapping his arm around my waist and tugging me into his chest. I flushed and shoved at him. Quit it! He laughed, letting me go, but I caught the flicker of molten gold in his eyes. Was it getting close to his mating season? We'd been friends for centuries, probably longer than that. Magnus came from the claw-bred tigers, an ancient race of pure white Siberian shifters who'd migrated here hundreds of years ago. Regal, rare, and ridiculously overprotective. We'd hit it off immediately. And as a rare Omega tiger, he'd become more than just a friend. He was my protector, especially when my father's business was tanking and the board was circling like vultures. Jorin, the former packmaster, had been my father's best friend. He'd kept the wolves at bay, figuratively and literally. But now Jorin was gone, and Vindictus, his younger brother, was taking control of the family business and the pack. Vindictus knew our family well. If this were the supernatural realm, hierarchy would have saved us. But here in the human world, we were bound by their rules. "Fine," I muttered. "That's the spirit," Magnus beamed. I shot him a dirty look as we stepped up to order our coffee. Once we had our drinks in hand, we stepped out onto the bustling pavement and headed down the block. The financial district was alive with its usual mid-morning madness. Taxis honking in endless symphony, executives in pressed suits marching down the sidewalks like soldiers, and street vendors shouting over the city noise. Glass skyscrapers soared above us, their mirrored surfaces reflecting clouds and ambition alike. The twin towers of the Tigress and Company building, our firm's headquarters, rose like fangs out of the concrete jungle, glossy and unapologetically dominant. As we made our way toward them, I sipped my overpriced latte and glanced at Magnus. "Are you going to participate in the mating ceremony?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. The silence was answer enough. "Magnus? You can't be serious?" "Why not?" he said casually, though there was a slight edge in his voice. "I'm getting of age, and so are you. The famine's driving everyone to the noble wolf pack, but those damn wolves think they're. If there's a war, we'll have to fight, and I'd rather secure my bloodline than be at the mercy of Cassian and Noah." He snorted, his jaw tightening like he was already imagining their smug faces. War. Great. That was all tigers ever cared about. Muscles, dominance, territory. Meanwhile, I was just trying to make it through the week without stress hives and a nervous breakdown. I was a lover, not a fighter. Honestly, I was afraid of my own shadow most days. And ever since Jorin got shredded by Cassian in that duel gone wrong, the clan had been gearing up for battle. Everyone was scrambling for reinforcements, the Panthers, the Bears, but the Panthers had their own drama with General Akshar trying to usurp the Emperor's throne again. Typical. I floundered, my brain short-circuiting. I wasn't ready for any of this. I didn't agree with it. I hadn't agreed when Jorin tried to mate with Noah, knowing damn well he had ulterior motives. And I definitely didn't agree when Vindictus attacked the herd. Asterion had been a noble bull. Proud, strong, and dignified. And we humiliated him for what? Some ancient ritual? We tried to take his calf, to sacrifice it to the gods because they demanded blood. What about the mother, the father? We'd been doing it for centuries, and only now did it hit me just how sick it was. "I won't, though," Magnus muttered, sneaking a glance at me. "If you don't want me to." "Do what you want," I shrugged, mentally spiraling into the ethical pit of sacrificial traditions. "I'll never mate as long as I live." Magnus snorted, but his gaze narrowed. "You always say that." "I mean it. I'll die a Virgin Omega if I have to." He laughed, but I wasn't kidding. I was deathly afraid of pain. Stubbed my toe once and thought I was going to meet the ancestors. Nearly wrote my own obituary. Pain and I? Not on speaking terms. We hurried into the elevator just as the doors were closing. The smooth jazz didn't help my anxiety. We rode it all the way up to the 12th floor of Tigers Enterprises, a massive glass monolith in downtown New York that looked way more powerful than it actually was. Magnus stepped out first, heading toward the large office with his name embossed on the frosted glass. Magnus Valeri, Senior Partner, Head of Legal Warfare. Mine was further down the hall. Atticus Roan, Chief Executive Officer. Courtesy title, mostly decorative, like a houseplant. Or the Queen of England before the monarchy dissolved. We parted ways, him looking as intimidating as always in his tailored suit, and me, well, I was already daydreaming about a nap and whether I could fake a medical emergency to get out of tonight's mating ceremony. I sat at my computer, sipping my latte like it was the only thing keeping me tethered to this realm. I finished replying to some emails, handled a few fires that demanded my divine attention, and once that was done, I got bored. Tragic. I pressed the intercom for Vicky, my secretary, my knight in shining armor, and my buffer against the horrors of corporate life. It was still midday, which meant 5 long, soul-sucking hours of torture remained. Might as well squeeze in a Halo match while I still had my will to live. I leaned into the mic. Vicky, no more calls until... Lucretia is on her way and she doesn't look happy. Well, so much for fun. I straightened. Sat down. Then stood up. Then sat down again. Then stood up once more. I nearly spun in a full circle like a caffeinated Pomeranian chasing its tail as anxiety chewed me up from the inside out. Lucretia was the lead tigress of our clan, and she wasn't pleasant. Think Aphrodite, if she'd been raised by a pride of piranhas and had a PhD in passive aggression. The clicking of heels echoed down the hall like the ominous march of doom. My blood pressure shot up so fast I might have qualified for emergency surgery. I leaped to my feet just as my office door exploded open and in strode a goddess of war, rage, and $400 perfume. Lucretia didn't believe in knocking, or personal boundaries, or joy. Atticus, she snapped, voice like velvet over steel. Her auburn hair spilled in flawless waves down to her waist. Her crisp white Babaton dress clung to her curves like it had signed a contract to worship her body. Her heels were strappy enough to be illegal, and her nails looked like they'd been sharpened to claw through bone. But her eyes were so blue they were almost translucent, like someone had distilled the concept of judgment and froze it into 2 icy emerald flames from the depths of hell. And she was looking right at me. Yes, I squealed, voice pitching high enough to summon local dogs. Lucretia narrowed her eyes and shot me a look so filthy it could have been classified as a biohazard. She took 3 deadly slow steps forward, the hem of her dress swishing like it was offended to be in my presence. I'll pretend I didn't just hear your voice crack like a prepubescent banshee, she said coolly, folding her arms across her chest. Her biceps flexed. Yes, she had biceps. Goddesses of war didn't skip arm day. I laughed nervously. Haha, right? So funny, right? You're so funny. Atticus. Her tone could have cut steel. Where? Is the Chen file? I blinked. The Chen file? She tilted her head just a fraction. The multi-billion-dollar international merger Chen file. The one that was supposed to be on Vindictus's desk yesterday. The one that you, as CEO, she air-quoted it with so much venom I think my soul broke out in hives, were supposed to personally approve and file with the board. Oh. That Chen file. Right, I said slowly, trying to keep my facial muscles from twitching. Okay, this is fine. This is... You forgot it, didn't you? No. Yes. Define forgot. Did it cross your mind? Eventually. When? Just now? Lucretia stared at me like she was debating whether to set me on fire with her mind or just throw me through the nearest window. Atticus, do you realize what happens if the Chen file isn't filed? We lose the entire deal. Vindictus looks like an idiot. I look like an idiot, and worst of all... She leaned in, eyes blazing. I have to explain to the Council of Elders that you were too busy playing Call of Duty to do your job. I gulped. It was Halo, actually. Her eye twitched. Which I was barely playing, thank you very much. She pinched the bridge of her nose and inhaled like she was summoning divine patience. You have exactly 10 minutes to find that file, print it, stamp it, light a candle to the ancestors, and offer up a small sacrifice. Your dignity will do. If it's not on Vindictus's desk by then, I swear by the blood of the matriarchs, I will wear your spine as a scarf. She turned and left in a blaze of fury and citrus perfume, heels clicking like the countdown to my doom. Vicky, I hissed into the intercom the second she was gone. I need you to find the Chen file, the will to live, and maybe a priest. Already printing, boss, Vicky replied dryly. I found it in your inbox. Unread. From 3 days ago. I groaned and face-planted on my desk. I'm not cut out for this. Tell that to your paycheck. I hurried to review the Chen file, wrapped it in a manila folder like it was a sacred relic, and tiptoed it over to Vindictus's new office, already set up for his arrival at the board meeting this afternoon. My gut twisted like a pretzel in a blender. I couldn't stomach the idea of him being here. I never told anyone this, but Vindictus used to torment me when I was younger. Followed me around like a vengeful shadow, taunting me about everything, from the way I talked to how I flinched whenever someone raised their voice. I'm a softie, okay? A downy, fluffy, hopelessly delicate omega. And this man was forged from steel and fire and old tiger rage. I wanted absolutely nothing to do with him. But this was my father's company, his legacy, and as his only omega son, I had to see it through. Preferably without crying in the bathroom. I worked diligently for the next 2 hours, too anxious to do anything more than hunch over my desk and grind through the mountain of work that had accumulated like it was breeding in my inbox. Then came the knock on my glass door. "Atticus?" Magnus asked, frowning as he stepped in. "Why do you smell so distressed?" "It's nothing," I lied, pasting on a smile that was 80% teeth and 20% nervous energy. Magnus walked in and shut the door behind him. He came around to stand behind my desk and, without a word, began massaging my shoulders. I sagged in relief like a dying plant getting watered for the first time in a week. "You shouldn't let her get to you," he murmured. "She's a beast," I hissed. "Like I swear I saw actual flames in her eyes." "She's our tigress," Magnus snorted. Then he pressed his cool palm to the back of my neck. I froze as his fingers found that spot, dragging back and forth in slow, deliberate motions that made my knees go soft and heat pool dangerously south. I stood up so fast I nearly knocked over my latte. "Haha, okay, enough of that. Come on, we'll be late." Magnus just looked at me. He'd been doing that more and more lately, staring but not really seeing, like he was searching for something that wasn't there. An ominous feeling bubbled in my gut, but I shoved it down with a shovel and followed the crowd toward the boardroom. When we arrived, it was already packed. Half the floor had come to see Vindictus, like he was some returning war hero or deranged celebrity. Probably both. He was fresh off a failed attempt to convince Asterion to stay in the Alliance, though threatening to kill someone usually has the opposite effect. Go figure. I took my seat near the head of the long obsidian table, knees knocking like I was in high school again. Lucretia sat beside me, eyes hard enough to slice through steel. I caught her gaze for half a second, then promptly looked away and pretended to be fascinated by a water bottle. 2 council members from the Tiger clan had shown up in person. Baron Elric of the Eastern Stripe, a hulking brute of a tiger with a voice like gravel and a monocle he wore purely for intimidation. Rumor had it he once bit a man in half for interrupting brunch. And Seer Hyacinth of the Obsidian Paw, cloaked in black robes with antler-like tattoos curling up her arms, her every word drifting like fog and sticking to your bones like a whispered curse. The rest of the board attended via holo projection or not at all, too busy to grace us with their terrifying, ultra-powerful presence. I called that a win. And then the doors opened. Vindictus entered, and all the air left my lungs like a balloon stabbed through the heart. Chapter 2. Atticus. Okay, so maybe I lied. Vindictus was a dick, but he was freaking hot. Like sizzling, skin-prickling, ruin-your-life kind of hot. The kind of hot that made rational thought pack its bags and flee the country. The double doors burst open and he strode in like he owned the building, which, to be fair, he almost did now. His black hair was artfully tousled, the kind of messy that took effort to look effortless. His eyes, dark and bottomless as oil slick, swept across the room. A faint shadow of stubble traced his cut jaw, and that mouth, plump, pouty, kissed by gods or devils or both, curled into a knowing smirk. He looked like a younger, more dangerous Michelle Marone. If Michelle Marone had fangs and absolutely no respect for personal space. My stomach twisted. No, flipped. Maybe backflipped through a flaming hoop and stuck the landing. His scent hit me next. Musky, dark, laced with that warning spice that screamed alpha trouble inbound. Every tigress in the room visibly straightened. Even Lucretia crossed one leg over the other like she was trying to remember a vow of celibacy, which, knowing her, probably didn't exist. Beside me, Magnus tensed. a low growl curling in his throat so softly only I could hear it. Then Vindictus's eyes found mine. He paused and smiled. Sweet heavens, I wanted to crawl under the table and die. The air shifted before he even entered. A hush fell over the room as the doors opened, and there he was. Vindictus. Black hair, black eyes, stubbly chin, and a sinful expression that had no business existing in a corporate environment. He had a mouth made for wicked things, pouty, expressive, and curled into something smug. He looked like a younger, hungrier version of Michelle Moroni, if Michelle Morone had been sculpted by wrath and testosterone instead of an Italian mother's love. He strode in like he owned the building. Maybe he did. I could barely remember my own name. "You're in my seat," he said. I jumped up so fast I nearly cracked my knee on the underside of the table. Someone snorted. A few people outright chuckled. I scurried out of the way like I was dodging a gunshot. Sorry, Alpha." Vindictus gave me a look. A slow, heated, up and down once-over that left me sweating in places no Omega should ever sweat in public. Then he sat down like a king reclaiming his throne. "Alpha," Lucretia purred, practically batting her lashes. "Welcome back." "It's good to be back," Vindictus rumbled, voice thick and dark, like velvet soaked in sin. "As of right now, I will be acting CEO of Tiger Enterprises." My stomach dropped. My lungs forgot how to do air. My eyes burned hot as gasps filled the room. Vindictus didn't blink. As the Alpha, it is my right to ensure this company doesn't fall into ruin. "Fall into ruin?" Magnus snapped, standing halfway up in his chair. "What the hell are you talking about?" "Did I ask you to speak?" Vindictus snarled. The room buckled under the weight of his Alpha command. It rolled over us like thunder, thick and suffocating. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. My ears were ringing. This was my father's company. My father, who built this empire from the ground up. My father, who died a few years ago and left me, his only Omega son, in charge. I know I wasn't perfect, but I tried. I tried. You can't do that," I croaked out, my voice weak, useless. "This is my father's company, and it's been without an Alpha for far too long." Vindictus cut me off coldly, not even bothering to look at me. His words were final, like a guillotine dropping on my neck. I stood there, frozen in place. Everyone had taken their seats. Except me. There were no chairs left. I looked like an idiot just hovering behind Lucretia, who was busy laser-eye flirting with Vindictus. I was this close to sitting on the goddamn floor when one of the interns practically threw their chair at me and fled. I mumbled, thanks, and sank into it, heart pounding. But the real show had only just begun. "Report projections for quarter 3, Lucretia said, all sugar and smoke, trying to sound official again. I cleared my throat and reached for my notes. "Our third quarter financial outlook shows a steady..." "Incorrect," Vindictus barked, before I even got 5 words in. "Your projections are skewed. You didn't account for the Jenkins withdrawal." "I did," I tried. "On page 6. "No, you assumed we'd recover losses in Q4. That's fantasy, not finance." His tone was icy, his glare even colder. "Am I the only one actually reading these numbers?" The board members shuffled awkwardly. No one defended me. No one ever defended me. With the new merger from the Eastern, be quiet. I blinked. My throat closed up. My hands curled in my lap as humiliation blistered through me. Vindictus leaned forward with that same dark calm, like he was about to perform a mercy killing. "If you're going to waste everyone's time with amateur spreadsheets and fairy tale optimism, I suggest you hand your duties over now. This company was bleeding when I got here. I'm here to cauterize the wound, not babysit an Omega who can't balance a ledger." The silence afterward was unbearable. Lucretia didn't even try to hide her smile. "Well said, Alpha." I swallowed the lump in my throat and sat there, still, quiet, dying a slow and painful death in a designer chair I didn't even get to pick out. "I'd like to point out," I said, trying to keep my voice from shaking, that Tiger Enterprises is still operating at a 12.4% profit margin despite regional losses. The Asterian fallout was addressed in the Emergency Subcommittee, and we pivoted strategy per Clause 17C of the Succession Charter. Blank stares. I pushed forward anyway. Furthermore, as outlined in Article 4, Section B, I was granted fiduciary authority. Unless a formal vote is called to rescind that— "Don't," Vindictus interrupted, not even looking up from his tablet. "Just don't." I flushed. "What I mean is—" "What you mean," he drawled, finally raising his eyes with all the amusement of a panther cornering prey, "is that you memorized your father's bylaws like a good little schoolboy and thought they'd protect you. This isn't a mock trial, Atticus. This is a corporation drowning under your incompetence." "That's not true," I said, louder than I meant. "I've led this company for 3 years. 3 years of quarterly backpedals, investor panic, and a reputation so frayed we had to grovel to retain contracts we used to laugh at." Vindictus sat back in his seat, long legs stretched, oozing contempt. "You inherited this company like a prince, but you run it like an intern scared of his own email." A ripple of laughter. A snort. Even Lucretia didn't bother to hide her grin. "Baron Elric," Vindictus turned to the eldest council member, "how many errors did you find in Atticus's last logistics report?" Elric cleared his throat. 8. One of them was egregious. The inventory numbers were off by 1,000 units. 1,000? Vindictus arched a brow. "Tell me, Atticus, were you planning to deliver those with fairy dust and good intentions?" My mouth opened. Nothing came out. My cheeks burned. "Seer Hyacinth," he continued, "how was the PR proposal?" "Misaligned messaging, weak strategic direction, and tone-deaf wording in paragraph 3, she said, sounding mournful. It read like a plea for pity rather than strength. Vindictus tilted his head, smile full of teeth. "You're losing the board. You've already lost the public. You're in here quoting charter clauses like they're going to save you. Here's a clause for you. Failure of leadership due to prolonged incompetence is grounds for removal." "I'm doing my best," I whispered. He leaned in, and his voice dropped to a cruel whisper that sliced through the room like ice. "Your father would be rolling in his grave if he saw you right now." The air fled my lungs. Silence. Deafening. I pushed back my chair. It scraped loudly against the floor. I didn't care. No one stopped me. No one called after me. I felt all their eyes on my back as I fled, past the polished glass walls, past the portraits of my father shaking hands with presidents, past the echoing sound of my own failure. I didn't cry. Not yet. Not where they could see. But the second that bathroom door clicked shut behind me, I sank to the floor, shoved my fist in my mouth to muffle the sob, and broke. "Atticus!" Magnus's voice reached my ear. "Come on." "He's a monster," I cried bitterly, trying to stifle my tears. After Father died, things had been very hard. I couldn't function like I normally could. And with the famine, my mother was worried. I was constantly going back and forth between the supernatural realm and the human realm. It was almost impossible to keep the company in good standing when I was traveling so much. The door creaked open, and Magnus knelt beside me. "Come on. Leaving proves them right." "They are right," I said, fisting my hair. "I've been an absolute mess since—" My breath caught when the air shifted. A spicy scent filled my nostrils, making my blood run cold. "Leave us." Vindictus filled the doorway, his entire muscular body so vast I couldn't even see the light behind him. Magnus stood over me, almost defensive, but one look from Vindictus and he backed down. "I'll be right outside," Magnus said pointedly, then shut the door behind him. "Stand up," Vindictus said. "Didn't anyone ever tell you how dirty bathroom floors are?" I stood slowly, wiping my tears and hands. I went to the faucet to wash them, but Vindictus grabbed them. His hand was so large it dwarfed mine, soft and silky in his grasp, not calloused, and he gently, almost reverently, used soap to wash the dirt from my fingers. "Remember what I told you," he said, though his voice was hard. I was so scared my knees were nearly knocking together. "I'll take care of your father's legacy." I ripped my hand from his grasp so quickly I almost splashed us both with water. That was before he died. And? You obviously can't do it alone. The words stabbed at my heart. I was trying, I whispered furiously. Now it's time I step in, Vindictus said, then yanked my hand back. He put it under the spray, and a spark jolted through me at the touch. You must take your place among our clan. I expect you at the mating ceremony tonight. But, no buts, he snarled. I'm sick of your excuses, Atticus. You've run this firm into the ground. Now do as your alpha commands. He shoved my hand back and stepped away, breathing hard, pupils dilated like he was fighting the shift. Then he turned and walked out. God, I hated him. What a damn brute. First he took my company, and now he ordered me to come to the mating ceremony. I was sickened. What the hell did he want from me? I dried my hands and stared at myself in the mirror. Shaggy blonde hair unkempt, falling over my brow, bright blue eyes rimmed with red. I was a mess. A goddamn mess. And he knew it. That's why he tormented me. I wiped my eyes and stepped back out. Magnus and Vindictus were waiting for me, as if locked in a silent battle, and together we returned to the boardroom where everyone was still waiting. Vindictus took his seat in my chair, his presence consuming. Now, let's begin. I fled the office as soon as the meeting was over, tears hardening on my cheeks. Magnus tried to call after me, but I packed up my stuff for the day and went straight home, too emotionally gutted. As soon as I got out of the building, there was a black car waiting for me. Atticus, the driver said, Vindictus has insisted you let me drive you home. I hated hearing that name, but I knew if I didn't go, he'd just yell at me about it later. So I left. I got home with my chest tight and aching and jumped straight into bed, clutching my favorite plushy pillow. I threw on Halo, my hair pushed back by my pink Hello Kitty headband, and melted into my nest of blankets. I played until sunset, finding comfort in the glow of the screen and the sound of plasma grenades. I never wanted to leave my house again. Ever. Then the phone rang. My chest tightened like a vice, but I picked it up anyway. Baby, my mom's voice cooed through the line. Mom. My bottom lip trembled. Magnus told me what happened. I almost burst into tears right there, but I held my voice steady. Barely. And did you know about it? That he was going to take over the company and humiliate me? Her silence was enough. Mom, honey, you've been struggling for a while. Don't deny it. Vindictus is a skilled lawyer and alpha. He has a great vision for Tiger Enterprises. Don't underestimate him. He's a stupid meathead who humiliated me, I cried, practically vibrating with rage. I hated him with every fiber of my being, and a few bonus fibers for good measure. I know, sweetie. But the council thinks it's a good idea, and soon you'll come to realize it too. When are you coming to the ceremony? I'm not going, I said petulantly, burying my face in my Hello Kitty pillow. Come on. No, I hate him. My mom laughed, and despite everything, it warmed something deep inside me. You always say that. You've hated him since you were a cub. Because he used to eat my snacks when we were kids and say it was alpha tax. Exactly. Adorable. Anyway, I want to see you. Magnus will be there and he said he's looking for a mate. So you might get lucky. I gasped. Magnus is my best friend. You can't say that. He's more than that and you know it. Please come for me? I groaned like I was being dragged to my doom, yanking off my Hello Kitty headband. Fine. I'm leaving now. Good. Oh, and Atticus. Wear the ceremonial robes tonight. Why? I just have a hunch it'll be needed. You are the first Omega male in over 30 years. Whatever the hell that meant. All my life, I'd been ridiculed for not being a real tiger. My father used to say, tigers don't beg. Well, I was the biggest beggar of them all and proud of it. We said our goodbyes and I got ready for my doom. I dressed in the ceremonial robes, the fabric heavy with gold embroidery and ancient threadwork that shimmered faintly with enchantment. As I stepped outside, the moonlight bathed the path in silver, guiding me toward the enchanted forest. The air was thick with anticipation. Magic stirred in the wind, rustling the leaves in hushed whispers as I crossed the bridge into the supernatural forest. The scent of pine, herbs, and something primal filled my lungs. The Terra Nova was alive, truly alive, as if it recognized what night this was. Ahead, the clearing opened like a breath, and there it was, the Tiger Circle. The moment I stepped into it, everything changed. The air snapped electric around me, pulsing with ancient energy. Tigers, massive, spectral beasts with glowing eyes and shimmering coats, circled a roaring bonfire at the center. Some danced in their human forms, others prowled the edges, tails flicking with anticipation. Tribal drums pounded in time with the heartbeat of the earth, sending tremors up my legs and into my chest. I felt it instantly. The urge to shift clawed at my insides, tugging at my bones, my blood. My fingers twitched, my teeth ached. My tiger wanted out. Grabbing a ceremonial goblet, I filled it with claw wine, a thick red liquid that shimmered like garnet in the firelight, and knocked it back in one go. It burned all the way down, a strange heat uncoiling in my belly, spreading to my limbs. My vision deepened. Sounds grew louder, colors more vivid. I could hear heartbeats, smell adrenaline. Magnus appeared across the fire, clothed in ceremonial white robes that clung to his frame like moonlight. His pupils were blown wide, his breath visible in the cold night air. He looked like a prince of prophecy, hair tousled, chest rising and falling with something that mirrored the chaos in me. The drums surged louder, and then the crowd parted. A hush fell over the circle. And there he was, Vindictus. Dressed in robes as black as pitch, he sat upon a throne carved from ancient whale bones, trophies from the sea kings, bleached and glistening with magic. His eyes locked onto mine across the fire, unreadable, burning. He didn't move. He didn't have to. His presence alone swallowed the clearing. My feet faltered. My tiger roared in my chest. The ritual was about to begin, and for better or worse, I was right where he wanted me.
Chapter 3. The Tiger. The moment I crossed the threshold, I knew I was standing in the ruins of someone else's failure. The air still carried the faint scent of cinnamon, as though Atticus had believed he could disguise the stench of failure with something warm and comforting, something to distract from the decay festering beneath the surface. The walls were lined with glossy photographs, hollow, performative snapshots of a legacy he had never truly earned. There he was, in suits too large for his narrow shoulders, shaking hands with men twice his age, smiling with the vacant optimism of someone who had no idea what he was doing. And perhaps, in truth, he never had. I took my place at the head of the company, in Atticus's father's old office, a space that carried the weight of a man far greater than either of us. He had been more than a leader to me. He had been a mentor, a guiding hand, a father in all but blood when I was still just a cub, trying to find my place in the world. Stepping into this room now felt like stepping into his shadow, and into the responsibility he had once carried with such ease. I had been in this chair for less than a week, yet already I'd uncovered enough missteps and oversights to fill the pages of a corporate scandal memoir. Contracts had been signed without legal review. Investor presentations were riddled with inaccuracies. Entire departments seemed to operate with little more than wishful thinking for oversight. Every document I touched bore Atticus's name, and everyone, without exception, demanded correction. "Freaking hell, Atticus," I muttered, red-inking another disaster. "Were you even awake when you approved this?" I slammed the file shut and leaned back, rolling my neck until the bones cracked into place. My temples throbbed with pressure, but it wasn't just the paperwork. It was him. That frustrating little Omega brat with his wide brown eyes, button nose, and the damn habit of looking lost in every room he walked into, like some overgrown cub too soft for the real world. Sweet, innocent, clueless, dangerous. He made my stomach clench every time I saw him. And not just from rage. Gods help me, it was something worse than rage. The way he bit his lip when he was nervous, the way he curled in on himself like he could disappear. Hell, the way he clung to that ridiculous plush pillow like it could protect him from everything. Atticus, the bane of my existence, and the only Omega I'd ever dreamed about wrecking until he couldn't remember his own name. But I wasn't here for fantasies. I was here to rebuild this empire from the ground up. He might have inherited the name, but I was the one with the teeth, the one with the claws. He'd had his chance to lead. Now it was my turn. I swallowed hard, thinking about his father, Maximus, one of the finest tigers I had ever seen in this lifetime. Before he died, he entrusted the business to me, and that was before Jorin had his head so far up his ass. He decided to attack Noah and Cassian. And Mina. The she-wolf was another headache altogether. I honestly didn't know which tiny fire to put out first, but I decided to start with this one, considering it was growing larger and larger as time went on. I quickly checked the time. I was expected at the ceremony at Terranova at 8, and it was inching after 6. If I planned it right, everything would be going according to plan. Atticus would arrive at his mother's instructions, and then we could proceed with the mating ceremony. It hadn't initially been my intention to deceive him. I just got tongue-tied whenever I saw him. Something about his big eyes and soulful expression made my throat tighten. A knock on the door made me look up, and then Lucretia stuck her head in. "Hey, heading out soon?" "Yeah, just finishing up some stuff," I said, shuffling the papers. "You look nice." She grinned, walking into the room, her movements lethal. "Oh, this old thing," she said, gesturing to her very expensive white dress. "Just something I threw on." I snorted, leaning back in my chair regarding her. She would have been the perfect tigress, especially for the pack. She was strong, capable, determined, all the qualities I liked. And yet, she wasn't him. I've held a torch for Atticus ever since we were cubs. Something about tormenting the skittish Omega always got me hotter than anything else I could imagine. And I just liked him. I couldn't explain it. And tonight, I plan to claim him. "Will you be looking for a mate tonight?" I asked, keeping it light. Lucretia kinked a brow at me. "Looking, yes, but hopefully not for long." My smile suddenly felt strained. Ever since Jorin died, things had only gotten more complicated with the pack. I wasn't interested in carrying old grudges. Terranova was safe for now. Even with the herds moving on and famine creeping in, I was confident I could keep us all together. And if worst came to worst, I'd move us, split our time between the supernatural realm and the human world. "Well," I said, clearing my throat, "I need to finish this." Lucretia nodded. "All right, no problem. See you tonight. Bye." "Bye," I replied, going back to my papers and not sparing her a single glance. There was too much work to do. Too many of Atticus's mistakes to clean up. But once I did, maybe eventually, he'd see that I'd been there for him the entire time. And maybe, just maybe, I could finally tell him how I felt. I stood in front of the mirror, trying to get the ceremonial robes to sit right on my shoulders. My hands were shaking, sweaty, clumsy, useless things. Every time I adjusted the fabric, it felt wrong, like I wasn't supposed to be wearing it, like it belonged to someone else, someone braver, stronger, someone not me. My nerves were a wreck. I could barely breathe in my own damn apartment, a luxurious penthouse suite that overlooked the city like it owned the skyline. But even with all the space, the endless windows and the cool night air rolling in, I felt trapped. The robes were too tight around my chest. My hair wouldn't lie flat. And the second I saw myself, really saw myself in the mirror, I wanted to tear the whole thing off. My reflection looked like a stranger pretending to be important, a fake alpha in silk and thread. Jorin had been the chosen one, the tiger to lead us all, and I had been the secondary choice, the last choice, the one we had when there was no one left. A knock startled me out of my thoughts. I blinked, then shuffled over to the door, my bare feet whispering against the marble floor. When I opened it, I nearly sagged with relief. Rexus, he grinned, that big, crooked, boyish grin that had gotten us both in trouble more times than I could count. He was already dressed in his formal wear, sleek, dark with hints of gold threading the collar and cuffs. His dark hair was tousled like always, and he carried himself like someone who never had to try. "Damn," he said, giving me a once-over. "You look like you're about to puke." "Thanks," I muttered. "Really helping with my confidence right now." He snorted and shouldered his way in like he owned the place, flopping down onto my couch. "Atticus is the first Omega male in 30 years, and he's about to be your mate, so you're allowed to panic a little, you know." "A little?" I laughed weakly, shutting the door behind him. "I'm spiraling." He picked up one of the throw pillows and hugged it like it owed him money. "Well, spiral faster. Ceremony starts in less than an hour. I can't go out there, Rex. Not like this." "You look fine." "I look like I'm about to cry." He sat up, serious now. "Vindictus, you've been through worse. This is just a bunch of pomp and tiger drama. You walk into that forest, you stand in that circle, and you let them see you for what you are. A mess? A legend." I gave him a weak smile, warmth crawling up my neck. "You always know what to say." "Yeah, well," he shrugged. "I'm the charming best friend. It's kind of my job." I sighed and turned back to the mirror, trying again to adjust the ceremonial collar. Rexus came up behind me, helping fix the folds of the robes with careful hands. He didn't say anything else, just stood there behind me until the shaking stopped. When I finally looked myself in the eye again, I still didn't feel ready, but I felt seen. And somehow, that was enough. Rexus hovered by the window now, arms crossed over his chest, that easygoing look from earlier replaced by something heavier. He glanced at me in the mirror before finally speaking. "There's another one." My smile faltered, lips parting, breath catching in my throat. "Where?" "Near the Outlands," he said. "That's 3 this week. More and more of them turning up with the same symptoms. I think we should really see what that damn witch did." "Not until we consult the old gods," I snapped, louder than I meant to. His eyes narrowed, but he didn't push. "Vindictus." "No," I said, turning to face him fully. My hands were fists at my sides now, the silk of my robes wrinkling with the pressure. "I'm not making any moves until we speak to them. I won't risk it." The room was silent, except for the distant hum of traffic far below the penthouse. Outside, the city lights blinked like stars, too far away to touch. "What should we do with the infected tigers?" Rexus asked finally. "Keep them in the cells. Double guard rotation. No visitors, no risks. Make sure nobody gets too close during the ceremony. We can't let anyone see them." Rexus nodded, jaw tight. "Got it." "I'm trusting you with this," I said, stepping closer. "Don't make any mistakes, Rex. If the council finds out before we have answers—" "I won't let that happen," he said. His voice was steady, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. He was scared. We both were. I exhaled slowly, trying to calm the tremble in my chest. Tonight has to go smoothly. No distractions, no suspicion. Rexus gave me a short nod. Then let's put on a show. He turned to leave but paused at the door. You sure you're ready for this? No, I said, adjusting the collar one last time. But I'm going anyway. And with that, he was gone. The silence he left behind was worse. The air around us crackled and snapped, an electric charge hanging over the entire scene as we made our way to Terranova. The world shimmered and blurred for a brief moment before snapping back into focus, the shift between realms palpable. I could feel it in the very marrow of my bones, the raw, ancient magic of the supernatural realm coursing through the air like a storm waiting to break. The sound of drums reached my ears first, wild and hypnotic, beating so fiercely it felt like they were pounding directly into my chest. The rhythm swelled and thrummed with primal energy, a call to the wild, to the very heart of what we were as tigers. Tigers leapt and danced in the firelight, their forms shifting between human and beast, the flicker of flames illuminating the sharp glint of fangs and the strength of their muscles. It was chaos, beautiful and fierce, a chaotic display of power and freedom. At my right, Rexus walked silently, his presence as much a part of the scene as the fire and the shifting bodies. He never said a word, his quiet strength a steady anchor at my side. I focused on the ceremony ahead of me, knowing full well that every moment here carried weight. The crowds parted as we approached, a circle of fire surrounding us. I took my seat on the whalebone throne, its massive structure creaking slightly under my weight as I settled into place. It was cold, the bones of some ancient creature long dead now used to create the seat of power for the alpha of our clan. From here, I could see it all, the half-shifting tigers in the crowd, their fur rippling and eyes glowing with a mix of hunger and excitement. There were those dancing, weaving around the flames, their movements almost as if they were part of the fire itself, swirling with the energy of the ceremony. People milled around, talking, laughing, some in awe, some in quiet anticipation, but the intensity of it all was unmistakable. This wasn't just a party. This was ritual. This was the heart of our world, the beating pulse of Terranova, a place where power was claimed, where bloodlines were respected, and where the fate of our people was decided. Rexus didn't move from my side, his stance almost sentinel-like as he surveyed the crowd with his sharp eyes. I could feel the tension in the air, thick enough to cut with a knife. Every eye in the place, it seemed, was on me now, some with expectation, some with curiosity, and others with something darker, envy maybe. I didn't know, I didn't care, but I had to be careful. Tonight was more than just about the ceremony. It was about claiming control. My control. The drumming grew louder, faster, more urgent, and I could feel the shift coming, the need to stand and join the pack in their wild, unrestrained celebration. But I held myself steady, just watching, just waiting. This night, I would take my place. And then, just like that, the crowds parted. A hush swept through the revelers, one that even the wild beat of the drums couldn't quite drown out. My gaze snapped forward, and there he was, Atticus. My breath caught somewhere between my chest and my throat, stuck fast, like a blade plunged too deep. He wore ceremonial white, flowing sheer fabric that shimmered like the moonlight itself had stitched it together. The robes clung and billowed in all the right places, ethereal and impossibly delicate. The firelight danced over the fine edges, hinting at the soft curve of his waist, the slope of his collarbone, the barest tease of skin beneath. He looked like a vision, a ghost, a god, an omega summoned straight out of an old prayer. And he didn't even look at me. Chapter 4. The Tiger. My jaw clenched as I watched his wide, sweet eyes scan the crowd, searching for someone, and when he found Magnus, that bastard, he didn't hesitate. Atticus walked right past the flame circle, right past the other elders, right past me. He went to him, to Magnus. My nails dug crescent moons into my palms as my fists curled tight. I heard the rumble in my chest before I realized it was me, a low snarl bubbling up, primal and furious. He didn't even glance my way. Unless he was afraid. Unless he'd come thinking I'd call him forward like some petty dictator, to embarrass him, to make him beg. He should have known better. Should have known me better. I don't humiliate what's mine. Not when I've been waiting for him my entire goddamn life. The moon loomed overhead, fat and full, pregnant with magic and meaning, hanging low over Terranova like a guillotine waiting to fall. Not tonight. Tonight he wouldn't hide behind Magnus. Tonight he wouldn't run. Tonight, under that brutal bone-white moon, I would claim him. Atticus would be mine. The horn's call shattered the air, and before I could think, instinct took over. My body moved on its own, raw power, all muscle and fury, surging forward like lightning unbound. My paws struck the ground in rapid, thunderous rhythm, claws digging deep into the dirt as I tore across the clearing. The fire blazed around me, roaring high into the night sky, but I didn't slow. I crashed straight through the flames, embers scattering in my wake. The scent of burning cedar filled my nostrils, but it was drowned out by something stronger, sharper. His scent. Atticus. My blood roared in my veins as I caught sight of him. He had already bolted, a blur of pale fur and desperate motion darting into the forest. His body twisted with frantic speed, tail tucked tight as he zigged left, then right, every movement a wild, terrified dance through the moonlit trees. I followed him without hesitation, my eyes locked to his trembling form. Each time he darted away, each time he slipped just out of reach, it only fed the fire inside me, stoking it higher, hotter, until every breath burned in my chest like molten steel. But damn it, he was fast. Too fast. He dove between two trees and vanished for a heartbeat, and I snarled, launching myself after him. My muscles screamed with the effort, claws shredding the ground as I pushed myself harder, faster, beyond reason. The pounding of my heart matched the rhythm of my stride, a steady, savage drumbeat of desire and rage. I could hear his panting up ahead, sharp and uneven, the sound of prey on the edge of breaking. The forest seemed to close in around us, branches snapping, leaves scattering beneath our feet, the night alive with the chase. Behind me, others had finally found their courage and joined the pursuit. I could hear the pounding of their paws, the thunder of bodies closing in. Lucretia's snarl cut through the air, low and challenging, but I didn't falter. I didn't even look back. None of them mattered. Not when Atticus was right there, running for his life, every line of his body screaming to be caught. The moonlight cut through the canopy, spilling across his fur like silver fire. I could see him clearly now, his chest heaving, his movements slowing. My beast surged forward in triumph, driven by a hunger that had simmered for years, a hunger that no logic, no prayer, no god could ever tame. I roared, the sound splitting the night, shaking the leaves from the trees. He stumbled at the sound just for a moment, but it was enough. I leapt. The distance between us vanished in a heartbeat. My weight crashed into him, sending us both tumbling across the forest floor. Dirt and leaves exploded beneath us as I pinned him down, my body heavy over his smaller frame. His breath came in ragged, panicked gasps, his chest rising and falling beneath mine, his scent filling my head, until I could think of nothing else. The world blurred around us, the fire, the onlookers, the gods themselves fading into silence. There was only him, only Atticus. And tonight, he would know who he belonged to. We collided in an explosion of motion and force, his smaller body crumpling beneath my weight as we tumbled across the ground. Dirt and leaves sprayed into the air, but I didn't falter. I pinned him hard, my claws digging into the earth on either side of him as my chest crushed against his back. His breath broke in a sharp cry, high and desperate, and that sound only drove my beast into a frenzy. Before he could twist free, before he could even think of slipping from me again, I struck. My jaws clamped down on the curve of his shoulder, teeth sinking deep into the soft flesh until the metallic tang of blood filled my mouth. His body jolted violently beneath me, a shudder of pain and terror running through him as his cry split the night air. The taste of him, the heat of him, the pulse hammering just beneath his skin. It sent a shock through me so fierce I thought I might shatter. I growled low and savage against his flesh, holding him fast, marking him as mine in the oldest way our kind knew. He wriggled, his muscles straining in panicked resistance, but it was useless. The bite had sealed it. His scent shifted instantly, panic twined with something deeper, something that sang to my beast, and I knew with every bone in my body that there was no turning back now. He was claimed, and gods help anyone who tried to take him from me. He kicked, twisting beneath me with desperate strength, and for a split second he slipped free, bolting toward the trees once more. I lunged after him, my claws raking the dirt, the earth trembling beneath my strides. The chase reignited, faster, fiercer, until the world narrowed to motion and breath, and the wild pounding of our hearts. He reached the ravine first, his paws skidding across loose earth as he tried to change course, but it was too late. I hit him from behind, and we went tumbling together over the edge. The air ripped from my lungs as we crashed down through the darkness, the world spinning until the ground disappeared beneath us and the freezing shock of water swallowed us whole. The river hit like a hammer, cold, brutal, merciless. For a heartbeat, everything went black. I didn't know which way was up or down, only that he was still in my arms, still moving, still mine. The current tore at us, dragging us downstream as I fought to keep hold of him, claws digging into the earth when we finally slammed against the riverbank. I rose, gasping, water streaming down my fur. My breath came in harsh, ragged pulls as I looked down and froze. Atticus wasn't a trembling ball of fur anymore. He was human again, pale and shivering beneath the moonlight, his skin slick with river water, his eyes wide with fear, his lips trembled, his voice breaking as he spoke. "Don't hurt me, please." The words hit me like a blade to the chest. Hurt him? No. Never. The thought alone was unbearable. My body was still shaking, not from cold, but from the storm raging inside me, the clash of instinct and emotion, the ache that had driven me to this moment. I shifted back, my form shrinking, fur giving way to skin, though I stayed over him, caging him in, unwilling to give him space to run again. My heart thundered as I leaned closer, his scent still wrapping around me, his pulse hammering beneath my hands. "Atticus," I breathed, my voice rough with everything I couldn't say. A snarl cut me off. glorious and furious. "Get the hell away from him!" I spun, my teeth bared before I even registered the face. Magnus. His voice carried like thunder, his rage crackling in the air between us. My claws flexed instinctively, my entire body coiling with fury as I rose to meet his glare. "Stop!" The single word silenced the war raging. I'd kill him, tear him to shreds if he got even an inch closer to my mate. An elder stepped forward from the crowd, a massive tiger with a silver mane and eyes that glowed faintly with divine light. His presence alone made the river seem to still, his voice cutting through the night with the authority that came from the gods themselves. "Atticus has mated to Vindictus," the elder declared. "Long live our tigress." A chorus rose in answer, booming and unanimous. "Long live our tigress." The sound rolled through the valley like thunder, reverberating through every root and branch, through every soul that watched. The air itself seemed to hum with ancient power, and I could feel the shift, the bond sealing, the recognition burning in every eye around us. This was no longer just a claim. This was destiny, carved in blood and witnessed by gods. Magnus stood frozen at the water's edge, his fury trembling on his lips. The gash in Atticus's shoulder was oozing blood, the bite mark bright and raw against his flesh. The elder's gaze turned to him. "Magnus," the old tiger said, "you will not challenge the Alpha's mating. The gods have spoken. You have no claim here." Magnus's snarl faltered, the fight draining from him as the truth sank in. He lowered his head, eyes burning with defeat, but he didn't move. Not toward me, not toward Atticus. I turned back to the Omega still trembling in the water, his hair plastered to his face, his eyes full of fear and confusion. Slowly, carefully, I reached for him. He flinched at my touch but didn't pull away. His skin was cold under my hand, his pulse rapid but steady. I let out a slow breath, the faintest smile breaking across my face. Triumphant, feral, unstoppable. He was mine, and tonight, nothing and no one. Not Magnus, not the pack, not even the gods themselves would take him from me.
Chapter 5. Atticus. What the hell just happened? I laid there in the water, completely stunned, the bond between us forming like liquid fire in my veins. We were bonded? Me and him. Oh God, I wanted to scream, but my throat wouldn't work. And Vindictus was still on top of me, dripping wet, his muscles rippling, and I flinched when he touched my arm. I hurried to sit up, scrambling a little, my heart pounding. What? I tried to make a sound, but nothing came out and everyone was staring at me. What the hell just happened? I lay there in the water, completely stunned, the bond between us forming like liquid fire in my veins. We were bonded? Me and him? Oh God. I wanted to scream, but my throat wouldn't work. Vindictus was still on top of me, dripping wet, his muscles rippling, and I flinched when he touched my arm. I hurried to sit up, scrambling a little, my heart pounding. What? I tried to make a sound, but nothing came out, and everyone was staring at me. The elders helped me to my feet, and I stood shaking. Vindictus watched me, his expression ravenous, and I turned to Lucretia, who was climbing down the hill, shock all over the tigress's face. What just happened? Now, the consumption ceremony. No, I squeaked, my voice finally coming back to me. It's a mistake. Right? I turned to Vindictus, feeling helpless. You bonded with me by mistake, right? He just stared at me. They all did. Right? I begged. This had to be a joke, right? Some horrible joke. Vindictus stepped forward, but I quickly stepped back, my face heating up. The others snickered. Well, everyone except Magnus. Is the Omega too scared to be mounted by his alpha? a voice sneered. What a catch, another jeered. This weak, sniveling thing won't even show respect. Vindictus sent them a warning growl, but his eyes remained trained on me. I stuttered. I was being disrespectful, but this was a mistake, right? I looked at Magnus, who lowered his eyes. I had to go with them. I had to consummate the bite. Vindictus stepped closer to me, then gently took my hand. Long live our tigress. Long live our tigress, they roared, and I felt my fate was sealed with the slamming of a door shut. If he hurts you or lays any unwanted finger on you, I'll freaking kill him. Magnus's voice faded into the background as I was dressed in the ceremonial mating robes by the elders. They painted my skin with thick, fragrant oils, tracing sacred lines up and down my torso, spirals and slashes in crimson and gold, curling like flames around my belly button. A ring of dots radiated out from my navel like a sunburst, each one meant to symbolize fertility, submission, power. Symbols of the Praetorian Bloodstripe clan. Symbols that felt foreign on my skin. They braided my hair tightly, weaving in strands of red silk and bone beads that clicked softly with each movement. My bare skin glistened under the torchlight, slick with oil and sweat. I stood stiffly while they prepared the tent, spreading a bed of soft, sweet-smelling leaves, fresh moss, and silken cloth. The scent of burning incense curled around us, thick and suffocating, filling the space with notes of sandalwood and spice. Chants rose low and slow from the elders gathered outside, an ancient rhythm that sent a tremor through the floor of the earth itself. This was it. I would consummate the mating with Vindictus. I would finally become us. My entire body coiled in disgust. It was wrong. All wrong. Bitter tears filled my eyes, and I lifted them to Magnus. His expression was stricken, like he was the one being led to slaughter. You don't have to do this, he whispered. We can leave, right now. I can... Magnus, stop, my voice trembled. If I run, they'll hunt us both. Let them, he hissed. Vindictus isn't a savior, he's a curse. You've seen what he does to people who stand in his way. You think that will change for you? I shook my head. You don't understand? No, you don't. Magnus stepped closer, his voice rising just above a whisper. He isn't good for you. He never was. He'll take everything from you, your freedom, your will, your name, until there's nothing left but his mark on your skin. Magnus, I sighed. I'm your friend, he said, his voice breaking. I've always been your friend. I'd never let him have you like this. We can dissolve the bond. My breath caught. That's not possible. It is, he said quickly. I know someone, a witch. She can help us. A witch? I gasped. The one at the edge of the forest. So the rumors were true. Mina, Jorin's cursed bride. She's still alive? Magnus nodded. She knows things no one else dares to speak. She can break the bond before it takes hold. Before he does. No, Magnus, you cannot... Trust me. His eyes flashed, fierce and desperate. Please, let me save you. You will do no such thing, a voice snarled from the entrance. Vindictus stormed in, eyes blazing, jaw clenched. Get out! Or what? Magnus spat, fists balled at his sides. Enough, one of the elders barked. Magnus, leave. Magnus's jaw ticked with rage. He looked like he wanted to kill something. Instead, he turned back to me and pulled me into a hug so fierce it stole my breath. I thought my bones might crack under the weight of it. You have options, he whispered, then pressed a kiss to my cheek. Vindictus snarled behind us. Magnus shot him one last glare before turning on his heel and disappearing into the dark. And I stood there, exposed. My shirt was gone, my chest bare and glistening. Only the thin ceremonial robe hung around my narrow waist, leaving me feeling more like a sacrifice than a mate. The elders drifted away one by one, their chants fading into the night. Only the flickering torchlight and the lingering incense remained. Vindictus stood still for a moment, then growled low in his throat. Leave us. The final attendants bowed quickly and scurried out. The flap of the tent fell shut behind them with a heavy finality. Then, silence, except for the pounding of my heart. You made my life hell, I stammered, my voice catching somewhere between anger and disbelief. Why would you want me? Vindictus regarded me. The smirk slipped from his lips, replaced by something quieter, almost pained. His gaze softened. Not much, but enough that I felt it, like the shift in the air before a storm breaks. Hell? He murmured. That's what you think I gave you? What else was it supposed to be? My words came faster now, pushed by years of pent-up frustration. You tormented me, Vindictus. You left dead rabbits on my doorstep, every week for a month. He blinked. You didn't like those? I gaped at him. No. Who leaves mutilated woodland creatures as gifts? He arched a brow. A tiger. An unhinged tiger. His mouth twitched, almost smiling. They were offerings. Tokens. You never accepted any of them. I burned them. I noticed. His voice was quiet now, the humor giving way to something deeper. I thought maybe you'd understand eventually. Understand what, exactly? That you enjoy watching me squirm? That I've never stopped watching you, he said softly. My breath caught. The words were simple, but they landed like a blow. His tone had changed, gentler, lower, as if every syllable carried something he'd never dared to say out loud. He took another step closer, closing the distance until I could see the glint in his eyes. Not just fire, something else. Light. Stars, faint but unmistakable, reflected in his gaze like a secret the night had been holding back. My heart skipped. What? What is that? I whispered. The mark of our kind, he said. When we find what's ours. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence was thick enough to drown in. Then, because my nerves were fraying and humor was the only weapon I had left, I blurted, So all that tail yanking and public humiliation, what? Was that supposed to be romantic too? Vindictus's mouth curved, a real smile this time, but almost shy. You bit me first, he said simply. I was 8, and I never forgot. He stepped closer still, the stars in his eyes brightening, and my pulse stuttered under his gaze. Whatever this was, madness, destiny, or something crueler, it felt like the world had narrowed to the space between his breath and mine. His hand lifted, hesitating, and then brushed a strand of blonde hair from my face, his fingers lingering against my skin. His voice was softer now, but no less intense. Because no one burns like you do. I barely had time to react before his lips were on mine, softer than expected, almost revenant as he cupped my jaw. My first kiss. I wasn't sure what to think, but I allowed him to kiss me, making a tiny noise in my throat when he deepened it. The bond sizzled between us, throbbing slightly as he pulled me in deeper. Vindictus nibbled on my bottom lip and then pried my mouth open. I had no idea what the hell I was doing, so I went with it, my chest rising and falling quickly. Vindictus was massive, his arms bulging as he held me close, face pressed against mine, lips tasting and his tongue tracing the seams of my mouth. I lost myself to it, groaning when his beard scraped against my chin. Ah, I breathed. I've never... I'll teach you, he said, then kissed me again, harder this time. His tongue was soft like velvet, stroking mine. Our chests were pressed together and moved in time until he backed me all the way to the bed of leaves and gently laid me down. And finally, I let the fire take over. Chapter 6, Atticus. We made love for hours that night. So much so that my throat felt raw like sandpaper in the morning from screaming. Vindictus stroked my concaved stomach, and I buried my face in the hollow of his throat, breathing in his musky scent. The hatred I'd felt earlier was slowly bleeding away, and a low purr rose within us as we nuzzled together. Vindictus had always been a brute, so a part of me nervously wondered, why me? Why hadn't he chosen Lucretia? She was the best option, wasn't she? My face went hot, and I bit my lip, peeking up at him through my lashes. He was a handsome bastard, strong jaw, eyes like the massive tiger that he was, and yet, why did he want me? "Why are you looking at me like that?" he asked. I hurried to look away, scared. I'm just confused. "As to," he murmured, kissing my cheek. "Why you—" I gulped. "Why do you want me as your tigress?" "Isn't it obvious?" No, it wasn't obvious. In fact, it was the most obscure thing that had ever happened in my entire life. I wanted to say it, but I didn't. "No." Vindictus sighed, long and deep, like I should already know, like I should be able to read his mind. "Do you remember when your father left the company?" I frowned. What did that have to do with my father? "Yeah." "He told me," he said. Vindictus's jaw worked. "Anyway, it doesn't matter. You're mine now. That's all that matters." My brow furrowed. What did that mean? He moved to get out of bed. He stretched, and I hated the way my body reacted to his muscular form. "Get dressed. We have the pack to address, and then we must head back to the human realm to absolve things there." "Absolve?" I said in alarm, getting off the bed. "What do you mean?" "We need to leave as soon as possible," Vindictus said as he got dressed. "Famine is upon us. Jorin couldn't make a deal with Noah and Cassian, but maybe I can. Either way, we must find a solution. We can no longer remain here." "But my business and my father's company," I sputtered, feeling indignation rise within me. What the hell was he talking about? Did he— A horrible realization dawned on me. Did he mate with me just to gain control of my father's company? My stomach swooped horribly, and an ugly thing started to squirm in my belly. Why had he chosen me and not Lucretia? Why wouldn't he answer the question? What the hell was going on? Bitter tears were burning my eyes, and he must have scented them because he paused while pulling on his shirt. "I'm sorry. It's for the good of the pack." Vindictus came over to me and kissed me. "I only want what's best for you. For us, the pack, okay?" I almost shoved him off. I almost punched him. This man had taken my virginity, and he had freaking used me. He was nothing but a user. He only wanted to control me and take over my father's company. Hatred brimmed all the way to the surface, and I fled, rushing past him into the bathroom. I turned on the outdoor makeshift shower, and once he was gone, I slid to the floor and wept. "What's wrong?" Vindictus looked confused when I quietly got dressed and refused to look at him. His scent spiked with annoyance, but I didn't care. He'd used me. This whole mating claim had been a lie, and I was the fool who believed it. "Atticus," he said more softly, touching my arm. The bond between us still sparked like it meant something. I pulled away and focused on tying the sash around my waist. "Let's just go." He frowned but didn't argue. We were already running late. The ceremonial robes were heavy. They were made from dark bronze fabric that clung to my body and made it hard to breathe. The sleeves were too long. Gold thread had been stitched into the seams in long, winding lines, but I couldn't focus on the patterns. The white fur across my shoulders was warm, almost too warm, and I didn't feel like I'd earned the right to wear it. A thick belt with the crest of our line pressed against my stomach like a weight. The boots pinched. None of it mattered. We walked in silence to the ruins of Terranova. The city had once been the heart of our people. Now it was broken stone and dead leaves. Cracked pillars leaned under their own weight, and vines crept up the sides of shattered walls. The wind was cold and sharp, and it carried the scent of decay. This place had seen better days. So had I. The pack was already there, standing in silence beneath the remains of the old council temple. Eyes followed us. I felt them like thorns pressing into my skin. They didn't know what had happened between us, but I did. I kept my face still and my shoulders square. I wasn't sure if I hated him or just hated myself more for believing he wanted me for who I was, and not what I could offer. I stood beside Vindictus in front of the crowd, my hands clenched inside the long sleeves of my robe. My throat was tight. My stomach hurt. I stared straight ahead and didn't say a word. I wasn't ready. And maybe I never would be. Magnus was the first. He spotted me right away, but instead of coming over, he promptly stared ahead, his expression blank. I saw my mother, too, but Vindictus wrapped a secure arm around my waist, keeping me close as we ascended the throne platform. The elders were there, along with Lucretia, who remained in her tigress form, a bitter sneer on her face. As we climbed higher, my throat tightened. I couldn't believe this was happening. I was officially the Tigress of Tyranova. The insanity of it all should have knocked me flat, but instead, I felt strangely numb. Vindictus turned, his face stony. He raised his voice booming across the ruins. All hail Vindictus, Lord of Tyranova, the Alpha of Alphas, and his Tigress, Atticus. All hail Vindictus. All hail Atticus, they roared back. The sound hit me like a wave. Loud, powerful, overwhelming. I nearly shrank into myself. I'd grown up in this pack my entire life and had no idea so many tigers were still here. We took our seats, and I half expected the ritual to be over soon. But then one of the elders approached the throne, bowing low. His voice was tight with urgency. "Vindictus," he said in a hushed tone, "we must speak. There is a matter you need to attend to, immediately." "Okay." "Once this is over," Vindictus replied without looking at him. The elder nodded, but his face was pale, frantic. My gut twisted. Something was wrong. Then the others began to come forward. At first it seemed normal. Formal greetings, small declarations of loyalty. But as more pack members stepped into the light, I started to notice something off. They were thin. Not lean in the way trained warriors were, but malnourished. Their clothes were ragged and faded. Most of them didn't meet my eyes. Their hands trembled, and their ribs pressed against their skin like they hadn't eaten properly in weeks. Some dragged injured limbs. Others had children clinging to their legs, little ones with hollow cheeks and dull eyes. I froze in place, my stomach clenched. Famine. I had known things were bad. I'd heard whispers in the reports, but this was something else. This was suffering. A gaunt woman came forward, clutching a bundle of fabric. A baby. Her eyes were red from crying. Another man's leg was wrapped in bloodied bandages. This wasn't just a bad winter. This was devastation. "What is your grievance?" Vindictus demanded. I flinched. Why was he being so harsh? Couldn't he see what I was seeing? The man stepped forward, his back bowed. He was maybe in his 40s, but looked closer to 70 from how starvation had carved his face. "Lord of Tyranova," he said, bowing again. "I humbly ask, please, allow me to take my children to the human realm. We've had no meat in weeks. My mate passed last moon and He choked. "I can't feed them anymore." I looked at Vindictus, horrified. My voice got caught in my throat. I wanted to speak, wanted to scream. Who let it get this bad? Why hadn't anyone helped them? Vindictus didn't reply right away. His jaw worked, clenched so tightly I thought his teeth might shatter. Then, finally, he said, "You'll need supervision. We'll send a scout to escort you there and back. You may gather supplies, nothing more." The man fell to his knees in gratitude, tears streaking his dirt-stained face. "Thank you. Thank you." I turned to Vindictus, whispering, "How long has this been going on?" He didn't answer, and that told me everything. Another woman came up, staggering. Her wounds were festering, her skin swollen and discolored, and she was slightly frothing at the mouth. I reeled back in disgust. A low murmur broke out across the crowd as she limped forward, her eyes sunken and wild. "What's wrong with her?" Vindictus demanded, but his face held nothing but revulsion. "Remove her at once." "Lord of Tyranova." "I beg you, hear me out," she pleaded as the soldiers moved to grab her. "My children are fraught with sickness. It's spreading. It's spreading." Her shrill cries made everyone recoil. Her scent hit me, heavy with rot, and a guttural snarl burst out of Vindictus's throat, silencing her on the spot. The elder from before returned, looking almost frantic. "Take her!" "No, please, please!" she screamed as she was dragged away. I turned, my stomach churning, a sickness welling in my throat. Vindictus's expression was colder than ice, and I realized, with a shrinking feeling in my chest, that I had no idea how ruthless this man could truly be. The meeting continued in much the same fashion. More came forward, pleading, broken, and Vindictus responded with a hollow disinterest, his words sharp, his judgment final. There was no warmth in him, no patience. After 3 hours, my back began to ache. I shifted in my seat, squirming just slightly. Vindictus noticed. "That's enough for today," he said, rising. "We will retire." I stood with him, relief brushing through me like a breeze. But before we could leave, the elder from earlier quickly came forward again. "Yes, Nemrus," Vindictus said calmly. "I haven't forgotten. We'll go now." The elder visibly relaxed, nodding as he turned and led us around the back of the throne. I followed close behind, an ugly feeling squirming inside my chest like a trapped thing. Something was deeply wrong, and I wasn't sure I wanted to see what came next. We walked all the way down to the dungeons, and I frowned when I noticed thick black gunk smeared along the stone walls, oozing and festering like open sores. The air was damp, choking, and foul. Nemrus lit a torch, its flickering flame casting warped shadows against the rock. We followed him deeper underground, the temperature dropping the further we went. Then I saw them. Cages. Hundreds of them, stretching into the dark like a graveyard of rusted metal. And inside were tigers. Dying tigers. What the hell? Their once glorious coats were patchy and dull, ribs showing through sunken flesh. Some lay motionless, others whimpered or thrashed weakly. A few foamed at the mouth, their eyes milky or glazed. I gulped. "Stay close to me," Vindictus said. He wrapped a steadying arm around my shoulders and handed me a folded cloth. I pressed it to my nose immediately, the stench of rotting flesh nearly knocking me out. We stopped beside one of the cages. It was her, the woman from earlier. She lay curled on the floor, unmoving. A fresh gash glistened on her forehead, dark and swollen. Her breath came in slow, wheezing rasps. Had Vindictus ordered her death? I didn't ask. I couldn't. We moved on, the torchlight bouncing off rusted bars and wasted bodies, until we stopped again, this time in front of a man. He was foaming at the mouth, his entire body covered in deep scratches. His eyes were black as coal, the whites gone, devoured by whatever sickness had taken him. The second he saw Vindictus, he lunged forward, slamming into the bars with a feral shriek. "Get me out of here, you bastard!" Vindictus didn't flinch. "Hello to you too, Aurelius." Aurelius? My heart stumbled. The former pack leader? The last of the Siberian tigers? He looked nothing like the stories. There was no regal poise left, no trace of the noble warrior I'd read about. He was deranged, spitting and snarling, his eyes wild and blood-rimmed, hair matted in thick knots. "You think you can keep me captive here?" he screamed. "You're wrong. It'll spread. It's already spread, and there's nothing you can do about it." "Kill him," Vindictus said calmly, like ordering tea. My heart lurched. I reached for his hand instinctively, gripping it tightly. My eyes met his, pleading. "Don't." Aurelius noticed. He grinned, sharp and wolfish, teeth cracked and yellow. "Is this Maximus's pup?" His voice slithered like oil. "How charming. You always did like the soft ones. When I get out of here, I'll rip him to shreds." "I dare you to try," Vindictus snarled, his composure cracking. His eyes blazed with fury, sharp and dangerous. Aurelius only laughed, loud and broken. He threw his head back, cackling like he'd lost everything but madness. "Just like Daddy." Just like Jorin. All fire, but no flames. He sounded insane. And yet, something about him made the hairs on my arms stand up. The way he spoke, the sharpness in his voice, it didn't sound like delusion, not completely. Aurelius was the very first leader of Terranova, a name etched in old scrolls, revered, feared, and suddenly gone, vanished without a trace after Vindictus's father seized the throne. I'd always assumed he'd died, that the legends were just that, legends. But now, seeing him here, rabid and broken, I couldn't stop the questions clawing at the back of my mind. How much of this was true, and how much had been fabricated? Because after Vindictus's father died and Jorin, Vindictus's brother, took control, things had fallen apart. Tigers began leaving the clans. Famine spread like wildfire, ravaging once thriving lands. Hunting parties returned empty-pawed. Crops rotted in the fields. Territory disputes escalated. Trust between bloodlines fractured. And the sickness, this rot, this infection, had started to appear. Some whispered that Jorin had awakened something ancient. Others said it was punishment for Aurelius's betrayal. But no one truly knew. All I knew was that these dungeons were full of secrets, and I had a sinking feeling we were only just scratching the surface. "Wait," I whispered, my voice shaking. Are you sure that's wise?" I ventured, trying to keep my back straight despite the churn in my stomach. Vindictus stared at me. Then, finally, he said, "Fine. Keep him alive. For now." He wrapped an arm around my waist and guided me out of the dungeons. The thick, rotting stench clung to my clothes, even as we climbed the winding stairs. "My lord," Nemrus whispered, falling into step behind us. "Are you sure that's wise?" "If anybody knew." "For now," Vindictus said, cutting him off with a wave of his hand. "I will retire. We shall speak soon, I promise." Nemrus shot me a fleeting look, bowed his head. "As you wish." We walked in silence through the dim corridors, the echoes of our footsteps the only sound. Vindictus exhaled a long, weary sigh. I glanced at him, catching the deep-set lines around his eyes. For the first time, he looked tired, mortal. "You must tell no one what you saw today," he said quietly. "Not a soul." "Promise me?" I nodded slowly. "But why is he alive?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. I had 1,000 more, but this one was first. Vindictus didn't answer at first. Then, after a long pause, he said, "You grew up with the old stories, didn't you? About Aurelius." I nodded. Of course I had. Everyone had. "Aurelius was the first tiger of Terranova," he said, voice distant. "Not just the first leader, but the first-born tiger of his generation. The clans believed he was blessed by the gods. Unstoppable. Wise. He united the lowlands and the high peaks, brokered peace between bloodline rivals, tamed the frost bears of the north. They worshipped him." I swallowed hard. The stories had always made Aurelius sound like a warrior king out of some forgotten age. But his father, Venerus, grew jealous. He couldn't stand that his son had become greater than he ever was. So he seized power by force. Had Aurelius imprisoned deep beneath the capital. Told the people Aurelius had died in battle. I blinked. But after Venerus died, why didn't Aurelius return? "Because Jorin took the mantle." The words left his lips like ash. Jorin. Vindictus's older brother. "He was never meant to rule," Vindictus continued. "But with Aurelius gone and no challengers left, the people turned to him. He wanted power, not peace, and he fell for a wolf witch, Mina, who twisted his mind with blood magic and false visions of glory. The famine began not long after. I felt a chill crawl over my spine. "I remember hearing those stories growing up," I whispered, "but I thought they were myths." "Most myths begin in truth." He looked at me now, really looked. "I don't know what this disease is, but it's spreading," he admitted quietly. "And if Aurelius is right, it's already outside these walls." My stomach turned. "I'm doing everything I can to keep the pack together," he said. "But we're standing on the edge of a blade. And I don't know how much longer we can hold." "Come on," Vindictus said, taking my hand. My heart fluttered like it didn't know better. "I want to spend some time alone with you before we head back to the human realm to resolve matters there." Resolve matters? That meant dismantling my father's company. A lump rose in my throat, tight and bitter. I couldn't speak. Was he really using me? Had this all been some cruel, elaborate plan? Was I so incompetent as CEO that he needed to burn the whole legacy down? One my father had built from nothing? Vindictus leaned in and pressed a kiss to my cheek. My skin burned under the touch, the bond between us sparking like a struck match. I wrapped my arms around him, burying my face into his chest, digging my blunt nails into his shirt as bitter tears welled in my eyes. He used me, and yet I couldn't escape him. His groan rumbled in his throat as he tilted my chin and kissed me. Slowly, then with hunger. I let him. I kissed him back. Chased that warmth I thought was still there. Chased the pleasure, the rapture, the impossible delight I felt the first night when everything was new and nothing had yet broken. My soul burned. My doubts, my heartbreak, my longing. All of it ignited under his touch. Vindictus backed me gently into the tall grass of the open field. Stars blinked overhead, silent witnesses. The world stilled, like even the wind held its breath. He looked down at me, eyes glowing with something ancient and possessive. "You're mine," he murmured against my skin, and I didn't know if it was a curse or a prayer. I arched into him, letting go of my fear, letting go of logic and legacy and my father's ghost. Letting Vindictus take me, claim me, right there beneath the endless sky. For a moment, maybe just that moment, it was enough. Chapter 7. Atticus. After several rounds of lovemaking, I clung to Vindictus, a needy whimper muffled against his lips as he kissed me senseless. We had thankfully moved out of the woods where the entire pack could hear us and back to his tent. His beard scraped my skin, coarse and electric, while his hand gripped my chin with bruising intent, dragging me deeper into him. His tongue licked the seam of my mouth, hot and insistent, until I opened for him, breath hitching as he claimed me with a growl. His body pressed flush against mine, rough and burning, hips locking me in place while I writhed beneath him. And then, he yanked away with a slick pop, leaving my mouth parted and my whole body straining for more. "I have to go," he murmured, voice husky from the kiss. "Rest today." "No, please." I clung to him like an octopus, desperate, needy. And he laughed, low and rough, before crashing his mouth back onto mine in a bruising kiss. "The council is meeting," he said between kisses. "Then the pack later." His lips grazed my jaw, trailing heat. "But rest. I'll come get you afterward." He nibbled my lower lip, sucked it into his mouth with a teasing growl, then yanked away, leaving me breathless and aching as he disappeared through the door. I spread out on the bed, arms stretched wide in the soft furs. I was deliciously sore from last night and this morning. We went 4 rounds, which ended up being too few for my liking. But the day was young. My fingers brushed the bite mark on my neck. I sighed, dreamy and weightless. Vindictus, Alpha. Just the word made heat coil low in my belly. Alpha. All mine. I washed in the basin, wincing a little as I carefully soothed the bruises along my hips and torso. His claiming had been rough, overwhelming, and perfect. I dressed for the day, my body still humming from his touch, the echo of his growls against my skin. The second I stepped outside the tent, I spotted Magnus. He was waiting. I grinned and ran toward him. "Hey, what's up? Oof!" He crushed me into his chest with a force that knocked the breath from me. His body shook like a storm held barely in check. "That beast! Did he hurt you? Tell me you're not hurt." "Magnus," I laughed, trying to pull away. "Everything's fine. I'll kill him," Magnus snarled. His voice was thick with fury and heartbreak. "Come on, we can run away together." "I can't believe he got to you so quickly. He was supposed to go for Lucretia in the mating run." He grabbed my wrist and started dragging me. "Magnus, stop. My heart kicked. His grip was like iron, and something terrible flickered behind his eyes. Magnus wasn't going to stop. And suddenly, I wasn't sure what would happen if I didn't make him. "Magnus, stop!" I snapped, yanking my arm back. "You're hurting me." That did it. He froze mid-step, like the words physically struck him. His fingers twitched at his sides, jaw clenched, eyes wild and dark with something close to madness. "Tell me he didn't force you," Magnus said lowly. "Tell me he didn't lay a hand on you without your consent. I swear, I'll rip out his freaking throat." I stepped back, heart pounding. People were staring. Heads turned as we squared off in the middle of the camp. "Magnus," I said, trying to stay calm, "he didn't hurt me. I wanted it. I want him." His eyes went wide, horror and disbelief clouding his features. "You wanted him?" he spat. "That bastard? After everything, after what we talked about, after what you told me last winter?" "That was before I knew him," I said hotly, "before I realized he wasn't the monster we thought." Magnus barked a bitter laugh, running both hands through his hair. "You've lost your damn mind. You don't even see it, do you? He manipulated you. He got in your head. He was supposed to mate with Lucretia, not you." "Well, he didn't pick her, did he?" I fired back, voice rising. "He picked me. I was the one he ran to, not Lucretia. And do you know why, Magnus?" His nostrils flared, eyes narrowing. "Because I wanted him," I said fiercely, "and he wanted me. Not some arranged match, not some political play. Me." Magnus took a step forward, fury vibrating off him. "You're making a mistake." "No," I said, holding my ground. "The mistake would have been walking away." Magnus's hand was still wrapped around my wrist, too tight, too angry. "Let go," I whispered again. This time I didn't have to say it twice. A voice cut through the air. "Unhand him. Now." Magnus turned, bristling, but he instantly dropped my arm like it had burned him. Lucretia stood at the edge of the circle of onlookers, her tiger eyes gleaming, golden and merciless. She was dressed in ceremonial black, the fur-lined cloak of Terranova's enforcers draped over one shoulder. "You forget yourself, Magnus." Her voice was laced with steel. "Lay a hand on the Tigress of Terranova again, and your punishment will not be a warning. It'll be exile." The entire crowd went silent. Magnus's lip curled, fury and shame warring in his eyes. But he bowed low, biting out, "My apologies, Lucretia." "And to you, Tigress." Then he turned and stormed off, shoulders rigid, rage simmering in every step. I watched him go, heart pounding, confusion spiraling in my chest. That was my best friend. Why did it feel like something had cracked open between us? Lucretia stepped beside me, her voice low enough that only I could hear. "He's spending too much time in the forest," she murmured. "With the witch." My head snapped toward her. "Witch?" Lucretia's lips thinned. "The one Jorin brought back before he died. Vindictus's brother. They say he returned from the western border with a creature in his arms. A girl who whispers in riddles, who sees things she shouldn't." "Why would Magnus—" "Because she offers things," Lucretia hissed. "She grants desire, promises power, love, revenge, whatever your soul aches for. But every boon she gives costs more than it's worth." I swallowed, throat tight. "What kind of cost?" Lucretia's gaze darkened, the slitted pupils of her feline eyes narrowing. "She doesn't trade in gold. She trades in fate. Blood. Time. Sometimes the people you love." My skin went cold. "And Magnus?" I whispered. "What does he want?" Lucretia's gaze cut toward the trees, where Magnus had disappeared into the shadows. "I think you already know." I looked into the forest, my eyes locked on the strange movement in the distance. Dark shadows crept between the trees, inching forward slowly, deliberately. They slithered up from the roots, up the trunks, and higher still, climbing like smoke that refused to dissipate. A chill slithered down my spine. I backed away, my heart pounding in my throat, my limbs stiff with fear. The camp offered no comfort. As I walked through the streets, I saw hunger carved into every face I passed. Children clutched their bellies. Elders sat motionless in doorways, eyes glazed with despair. The scent of spoiled food and ash hung in the air. Famine had become a quiet monster here. It didn't roar or strike suddenly, it just lingered, gnawing us apart from the inside. Worse still, the tigresses and their kin, once united by blood and code, were now turning on one another. I witnessed two males clawing and biting in a narrow alley, their growls echoing like thunder against the stone walls. A female tried to pull them apart, but one of them lunged at her without hesitation. He struck her across the jaw, and she collapsed in the dust, dazed and bleeding. Something was very wrong. This was no ordinary hunger, this was deeper, darker. We were unraveling, and all around me the whispers grew louder. They spoke of the forest, of the witch Jorin brought back, the same Jorin who died under mysterious circumstances. They said she could grant anything the heart desired, but at a cost. And that Vindictus, our ruler, had been spending too much time among the trees. Too much time with her. The more I heard, the more I began to wonder. Had the curse already begun? I sought out Vindictus immediately. He was in council with the other generals. My heart beat so loudly it echoed in my ears. Fear had always been my constant companion, familiar and unwelcome, but this time I wouldn't let it break me. This was my home. These were my people. We were tigers, yes, but we didn't have to be monsters. The war tent was already crowded. Warriors flanked the heavy table, their faces grim. Even Lucretia had beaten me there. She stood tall, arms crossed, her expression a hard, unreadable mask. Vindictus hovered over the central map, brows furrowed in thought. They're moving inward. Toward Noah and his pack, he said quietly, voice grave. But why? Baron Elric tapped a claw on the map. The same reason Jorin wanted it. The land is rich, untouched. The forests are full of game, the rivers run clean, and the old magic still clings to the soil. Noah knows exactly what he's sitting on. And he won't give it up easily, the Baron added. Word is, Clyde is on his way. Asterion, too. If we're going to strike, we need to do it now before they solidify alliances. Strike? My throat locked up. The word turned my blood to ice. Why did it always come down to war? Why must we always butcher and take? Were we really so far gone that negotiation wasn't even an option? I began, my voice barely audible. We should take it by force, Lucretia cut in, louder. What happened to Jorin cannot go unanswered. He was a diplomat. He went to broker peace, and they slaughtered him. Noah must pay for that. But Cassian won't allow it, another general interrupted. Noah is his mate. He won't stand by and watch Terranova lay siege to his home, not without retaliation. Asterion's weak, Lucretia spat. We shattered him. He should have died for turning against us, and now the calf sacrifices that kept the death gods at bay are gone. What do we have left? Starvation, plague, civil unrest. She was right about one thing, we were crumbling. But turning against more clans? That would only hasten our fall. Listen to me, I shouted. All heads turned. Silence fell like a blade. Vindictus looked up. For a moment he seemed stunned to see me there, as if he hadn't realized I'd slipped in. You shouldn't be out of bed, he said softly, stepping toward me. He reached for my hands, cradling them carefully. You're still healing. I'm fine. I gripped his fingers, grounding myself in the warmth of him. But please, don't do this. There has to be another way. I swallowed hard, pulse hammering as I stepped forward. We don't have to do this, I said, my voice low but steady. Starting a war while we're starving, what's that going to fix? It'll only make things worse. Lucretia turned to me, her eyes burning gold. Worse than watching our people waste away in the streets? You think surrendering makes us stronger? I didn't say surrender. I kept my chin up, though my gut twisted. I'm saying there might be another way. We don't even know if Noah meant harm. What if there's a path that doesn't end in blood? Spoken like someone who's never had to fight for what's his. Her tone was cold. You might be the Tigress of Terranova now, but don't forget how you got that title, or who earned it for you. The council murmured, some nodding, most scowling. One of the older warriors sneered, He's been coddled too long. That alpha's softened him. Lucretia's not wrong, another added. We can't afford weak blood at our table. I opened my mouth, but Vindictus raised a hand. I looked at him, searching his face, but all I saw there was disappointment. "Thank you for speaking your mind," he said quietly. "You should rest now. We'll handle the council from here." "But that's enough." His voice was kind, but final. "Go. Under no circumstance are you to go near that witch." I froze, my stomach churning. I was the Tigress of Terranova, by right, by bond, by name. But standing there, being dismissed like some nervous boy who'd wandered into the wrong room, I didn't feel like I belonged. Still, I turned and left, the heavy silence behind me swallowing what little courage I had left. I walked out of the tent, my heart sinking like a stone in water. Another war. For what? More death? More blood spilled on cracked, dry soil? We were already starving. Would battle fix that? Or just leave more of us dead in the dust? "I told you he was using you," a voice said behind me. I turned and found Magnus leaning against one of the support beams, his arms folded, his expression unreadable. He looked calmer than usual, but there was something off about him, something hollow and unnerving, like a mask stretched too tight over something rotten. "He'll keep using you," Magnus said. "Breed you. Break you. You mean nothing to him." "Stop it, Magnus," I snapped, my breath catching. "Why are you saying these awful things?" "Because they're true," he hissed, pushing off the post and stepping closer. "He's always treated you like you were disposable. Don't you remember who was there when he made you cry? When he humiliated you in front of your coworkers? When he tried to drive you out of your own father's company?" His voice cracked, but he pushed through. "I was there. I was always there. I waited so long for you to come of age, and then he took you. Like everything in your life was just his to own." "Magnus." I swallowed hard, my voice softer now. "I appreciate everything you've done for me. You're my best friend. I love you. I do. But not like that." His face twisted, something raw flashing in his eyes. He stepped in close, too close, and suddenly his hand was in my hair, fisting it tight. Not enough to hurt, but enough to hold me still. "I love you too," he murmured. "More than he ever will. Come with me, please. Just for a little while. I haven't seen you, really seen you, since you married that beast." "I can't go with you if you keep calling my mate a beast," I said, pulling back slightly. Magnus paused, jaw tight, then finally released me. He took a breath and nodded. "Understood," he said. "Just come. That's all I'm asking. I want you to meet someone, that witch I told you about." "The witch?" I swallowed. "Mina. What are you doing with her?" "She's my friend. Please, just meet her." "I don't know. I have a bad feeling about this." "Don't. If anything happens, I'll protect you. I promise." He took my hand and I had no choice but to follow. We stepped over the threshold of the tree line, the golden light of Terranova shrinking behind us, swallowed by the canopy of looming, skeletal trees. The deeper we went, the more the world around us changed. The air grew cold and damp, as if even the wind feared to breathe here. The forest floor turned soft beneath my boots, thick with moss and decaying leaves that oozed water when stepped on. Shadows stretched unnaturally long, like black fingers curling across the earth to grab at our heels. My stomach twisted tighter with every step, an ache blooming behind my ribs. I didn't know if it was fear or some deep-rooted instinct screaming at me to turn back. "Magnus," I murmured. "Where are we going?" "To her," he said simply, voice distant. "To the one who sees all." We walked in silence after that. Even the birds had stopped singing. No rustle of wildlife, just the crunch of twigs and the heavy thudding of my own heart. Finally, we came upon a small hut nestled between two dead trees, its roof sunken and slouched as though the forest had tried to crush it out of existence. The wood was rotted and black, slick with moisture and crawling with vines that pulsed faintly, like veins filled with poison. The air around the hut hummed low, vibrating with something that didn't belong to the natural world. Magnus stepped forward, his hand trembling slightly as he raised it and knocked. The sound echoed too loudly in the quiet like a gunshot underwater. The door creaked open on its own. A sickly yellow light spilled out, pooling at our feet like bile. Inside, it smelled of burnt herbs and iron. There was no one in sight, just shadows that didn't quite match the shapes of the furniture they belonged to. Cobwebs hung like gauze from the rafters, and the walls were lined with jars. Things floated in them, twitching, pulsing, staring. I hesitated on the threshold, every instinct inside me begging me to run. But Magnus reached for my hand. "She's waiting." Mina. She stood at the threshold. She was breathtaking, so stunning it hurt to look at her. My breath hitched in my throat. Her long, dirty blonde hair spilled like silken straw down her back, glinting faintly in the dusky light. Her clothes, unlike the decay around her, were pristine, new, hand-stitched. I knew then that Magnus had been caring for her in secret. He'd never admit it, but he was one of the last loyalists to Jorin. He believed, knew, that Vindictus was unfit to rule. Why had Vindictus kept her here? Was she that dangerous? Mina stood with her hands clasped gently before her, like a queen in exile. She tilted her head at me, her eyes shimmering with something ancient and knowing. "You are the soft one," she said, her voice velvet and thorns. "The one who sees beyond bloodshed. Beyond the kill." I hesitated, my brow creased. I glanced to Magnus, but he only urged me forward with a solemn nod. Mina's gaze bore into mine. "I see life in you. The stirrings of something new. But before life, there must always come death." My stomach turned. "What do you mean?" She didn't answer right away. Her eyes flicked past Magnus, as though she were seeing through the trees, across time itself, to someone else. To him. "To a man who will one day be a great alpha," she said. "But he is bound, shackled, to the past, to ancient customs, to old rulers, long rotted beneath the ground. If he does not sever their grip, he will never lead. He will only echo them." A cold wind whistled through the trees, rustling the canopy like bones rattling in a box. "A new dawn is coming for all shifters of this land," she whispered. "But the sun does not rise without sacrifice." I didn't like how her words felt. They sank into me like hooks. "What kind of sacrifice?" She stepped closer, her bare feet whispering over the earth, the scent of wild herbs clinging to her skin. "Do you know why your ancestors began killing calves and pouring their blood into the earth?" she asked. I shook my head. "Not even our oldest elders know. They only say that every spring the tigers demanded it, that the bulls were required to offer their firstborn calf in blood." My voice faltered. "It's been that way for 1,000 years." Magnus growled low in his throat. "What does a wolf witch know of tiger legends?" Mina laughed, a hollow, bitter sound that didn't belong on her beautiful face. "I know many things, Tiger. A great many things. My eyes are the forest, my ears, its branches. The ground speaks to me in its sleep." She reached up and laid a cool, pale hand against my cheek. Her touch was like moonlight, cold, soft, and full of secrets. "I see that many lives will bloom from yours," she whispered, "but for life to take root, something must wither." I didn't move. I couldn't. She turned, walking back toward the hut. "I will show you a vision," she said. "Come." And though my instincts screamed at me to run, I followed her. The vision Mina showed me was more than a glimpse. It was a nightmare carved into my bones. I saw it all. The battlefield stained red, the air thick with smoke and death. Our pack was being torn apart. Wolves and lions clashed with our kin, while bulls and stallions trampled the fallen beneath their hooves. But what we hadn't seen coming, what no one had, were the panthers and leopards. Silent, sleek, and merciless, they flanked from the shadows, moving like living blades. They were mobilizing now, gearing up for war while we wandered blindly toward slaughter. And then I saw him, Vindictus. My mate. He roared, defiant to the end, before he was dragged down, shredded, mauled, trampled underfoot by a dozen enemies. His blood sprayed the earth, and his dying cry echoed like a cannon in my ears. No! I jolted back to the present, breath ragged, my chest heaving. Magnus was beside me, his face pale, drenched in sweat. He had seen it too. The horror, the end. How do we stop it? I asked, desperation rising in my throat like bile. Mina looked at me, her black eyes gleaming with eerie calm, as though she'd been waiting for that question all along. A sacrifice, she said softly. You must sacrifice yourself. No, Magnus snapped, stepping in front of me like a shield. That wasn't the deal. Deals, Mina purred, voice like silk and broken glass, were made to be changed. Altered. This one is pure. He's the perfect sacrifice. Mina, trust me, Magnus. She tilted her head, her lips curling into something between a smile and a curse. He will be yours soon. Magnus clenched his jaw, rage simmering beneath his skin, but he didn't argue. He stepped back. Whatever it is, I said firmly, stepping forward. I'll do it. Please, save my mate. Save my mother. Mina's eyes flared. She raised her arms to the heavens and began to chant in a tongue older than the wind. Her voice vibrated through the air like a tremor, and suddenly, a force slammed into me, hurling my body against the wall. I screamed. The pain tore through me like fire, blistering, raw, unrelenting. My bones snapped and reformed. My skin crawled and peeled. I was forced to shift, tiger form erupting violently from my human skin. My body twisted, convulsed, writhing as black veins surged across my limbs. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. Magnus fell to his knees, clutching his stomach. What are you doing to him? He choked out. Mina's grin was cruel and knowing. I said he'd be yours, she said sweetly. But I never said the gods would agree. With a flick of her hand, a blast of dark magic hurled Magnus out of the hut. He crashed into the forest with a cry of pain, famine, sickness. Mina's voice rose like a death bell. A horrible sickness will befall you. Then, the scales will balance. I howled as my fur began to fall in clumps. My claws cracked, my vision spotted with black and gray like ink in water. It felt like my soul was unraveling. The wasting disease, it was consuming me, killing me from the inside out. This will befall the entire pack, Mina said, calm and cold. Every single one of you will die. Unless the cure is found. A human, not of shifter blood. They reside in Noah's pack. I collapsed to the floor, trembling, my breath shallow. Her final words rang in my ears like prophecy etched in bone. Find them, or you all perish.
Chapter 8. The Tiger. Something was wrong. The connection with Atticus twisted, fractured, and then snapped into searing agony. My head jerked toward the woods, my chest pounding with the echo of his pain. I felt him, suffering. The bond burned with it. But before I could move, the council's voices pulled me back. The tent was thick with heat and tension, the air stinking of incense and oil. I lowered myself into the great whalebone chair at the head of the council table, dragging a hand across my forehead. Famine and disease pressed down on all of us. The sickness spreads faster than we can contain it, growled Elder Jorin, his striped mane dull with exhaustion. 3 more tigers collapsed last night. By morning, one was already dead. A murmur rippled through the tent. We've tried healers, charms, even the priest's smoke, snapped Lucretia, her golden eyes flashing. Nothing works. If this continues, there will be no army left to command. Then what do you suggest? Snarled another elder. Cull them? Leave our brothers and sisters to rot like carrion? They're already rotting, Lucretia hissed back. The council erupted into overlapping voices, growls, shouts, claws drumming against the wood. Silence! My roar cut through them like a blade. The tent fell still. My temples throbbed, my heart still hammering from the bond's pain. We are not animals bickering over scraps. We will face this as a council. Jorin leaned forward, voice low. The famine weakens all clans, not just ours. Wolves starve, ravens turn on each other, and now this plague festers in our bloodlines. Vindictus. If we do nothing, Terranova will collapse before winter. My claws scraped against the arm of the chair. And if we do the wrong thing, we damn ourselves faster. Lucretia's gaze cut into me. There are whispers, Alpha, that the sickness is not natural, that it was called here. My stomach turned. By who? The witch. The word slithered from her mouth like poison. Mina. Jorin's cursed mate. The tent rippled with unease. The name alone was enough to make warriors stiffen. She should have been burned when she crossed into our lands, one elder spat. Instead, you let her stay. My jaw clenched. I hesitated. You gambled with hesitation, Lucretia pressed. And now we all pay the price. For a long moment, I said nothing, the weight of their eyes on me. Outside, the forest whispered with hunger and decay. Inside, my mate's agony still seared through the bond like fire. At last, I rasped. Then we hunt the source. And if it is the witch, she burns. The sky overhead darkened unnaturally, roiling with angry thunderclouds. Lightning tore across the heavens. It wasn't just a storm. It was a witch's Sabbath. A curse. My blood turned to ice. Rexus! Lucretia! With me, I snapped. We charged forward, but the moment we passed the tree line, chaos erupted around us. Screams tore through the camp. I whipped my head around just in time to see one of my warriors collapse, body shriveling before my eyes. His skin clung to bone. He screamed. And then his voice was silenced, the sound caught in a throat that could no longer draw breath. Others shifted into their tiger forms mid-scream, unable to control it. They writhed on the ground, convulsing, wasting away into husks. What the hell was this? No! I bellowed, sprinting toward the source. But even my own body betrayed me. My muscles cramped, strength bleeding from my bones. My legs trembled. I could feel myself shrinking, consumed from within by something invisible and cruel, a disease. A curse. Mina's doing. I fought through the agony, forcing my legs to move. With the last of my strength, I kicked open the door of the witch's hut and stopped dead. Atticus lay curled on the ground like a dying cub, small and trembling. His tiger form was barely clinging to life, his fur patchy, his limbs stick-thin, ribs pressing through skin. And Magnus, sitting beside him, his head lowered, silent. Rage surged, so hot and blinding I thought I would combust. My vision tinted crimson, my claws extended. My mate, my beautiful, fierce mate, was being drained right in front of me, and this bastard... I snarled. I was going to tear him apart. I lunged. Magnus met me midair with a roar, our bodies slamming together like crashing meteors. Bone cracked, teeth gnashed. His claws raked deep into my flanks, shredding flesh from muscle. Blood sprayed the walls like paint. I didn't feel the pain, not through the haze of fury that clouded my mind. This was betrayal, and betrayal demanded blood. We tore down the walls of the hut as we fought, our tiger forms locked in a deadly blur. The roof split open, wooden beams crashing down around us. A chair shattered under Magnus's weight. A table splintered as I shoved his bulk through it. The air filled with the stench of blood, piss, and smoke. His jaws locked on my shoulder, crushing and brutal, his powerful jaw piercing through flesh and bone. I let out a howl and slammed him against the far wall. Dust rained down. Shelves toppled. My claws found his face, and I didn't hold back. I raked across his eye. He screamed. A wet sound, raw and animal. His eye burst in a hot spray of fluid. It ran down his face in glistening ribbons, and I knew he'd never see from that side again. "Yield!" I snarled, voice guttural and thick with blood. Magnus collapsed, trembling, half-shifting back into his human form, one arm limp, his good eye blazing with pain. But then, he did something I didn't expect. He reached for me, not to strike, but to plead. "There's a cure," he gasped, blood bubbling from his lips. "Noah's pack. They have it. If we don't reach them, we're all dead." My claws were already at his throat, quivering with the need to end it. "All is doomed if we keep fighting," he whispered. "Please." My breath heaved. I looked back, eyes darting to the form crumpled by the fire. Atticus. He lay barely breathing, ribs jutting, skin too loose on his bones. I turned and bolted, charging through the broken wall, splinters digging into my paws. Back inside the hut, I saw Lucretia. Her massive jaws hovered just inches from Mina's pale throat. The witch didn't flinch, didn't move. Her eyes were wide, watching me, not her executioner. "Explain yourself, witch," I growled. "You dare touch him, curse my blood, and now this?" Lucretia held still, teeth bared. "You'll want to hear what I saw before you doom us all." Mina's voice wavered, her eyes distant yet brimming with urgency. Not fear, something deeper, something ancient. Her jaw trembled as if the weight of what she'd seen was too much to hold in her skull. She turned to me slowly, a strange gleam in her eyes, sorrow, resolve, and just beneath it, mourning. Then she reached for me, fingertips grazing my temple, and I saw it. Fire. Endless fire. Not the cleansing kind, but the kind that devoured. Mountains split apart as storms blackened the skies. Rivers boiled and turned to steam. The earth cracked open, revealing not molten rock, but screaming souls. Wolves and tigers alike, their bodies twisted by curses, roamed the ruins of what used to be our world. There was no pack, no pride, only hunger, only blood. And in the center of it all stood Atticus, his body pierced by obsidian spears, his hands bound, his mouth moving, chanting something old, sacred, forbidden. He wasn't fighting the end. He was summoning it. "No," I gasped, recoiling from her touch. No, that can't be." Mina's face was wet with silent tears. She said nothing, but the truth had already taken root. Atticus was the sacrifice. Not because he was weak, but because he was strong enough to offer himself. Because the gods demanded his blood, and he gave it freely. Because he wanted to help. "You fool," I whispered, my voice thick with grief as I pressed my face into the crook of his neck. His breath came in ragged gasps, each one shallower than the last. He was straining to breathe. We all were. Our bodies wasting away, muscles eaten by something we could not see, could not fight. "Return me to my brother," Mina said, "and I will cure you. Or else, everyone you love will die." I raised my head, baring my teeth. "This was your plan the entire time," I hissed. "Yes," she said, unapologetic. "Because there must finally be peace." Then she cupped her swollen belly. Pregnant. She was pregnant with Jorin's child. No wonder she was desperate for peace. No wonder she had gone through such lengths, summoned such horror, wielded the god's wrath like a weapon. She had everything to lose. We would have slaughtered the entire wolf pack and more, wiped them off the map with fire and steel and fang. But now we were forced to work with the wolves instead of against them. I was forced to surrender. We left Terranova that same night. The moon was heavy and hung low over the forest, like a dead eye watching us, unblinking, as we fled our ruined home with nothing but the fur on our backs and blood in our mouths. The curse still clung to us like rot, thick and punishing, and none of us, not a single soul, could shift back into our human forms. We were monsters now in body as well as name, hulking beasts stitched together with rage and grief. Our fangs bared not in threat but in anguish. I dragged my mate through the underbrush until my teeth bled, the taste of his fur and my own iron-slick mouth mixing with pine sap and dirt. Branches sliced into my gums, cracked against my fangs, tore across my face. But I didn't stop. Not for the pain, not for the cold, not for the creeping sickness curling in Magnus's wounds. Magnus, he was nearly dead, his eye sealed shut with blood and pus, his once proud shoulders sunken and trembling with fever, his healing stunted by the poison in his veins. His body sagged in my jaws with every dragging step, and still I pulled him forward because I could not, would not, leave him behind. The others limped beside me, their bodies broken and spiritless, yet somehow still moving. Bruised ribs, torn ears, fur slick with black blood that didn't belong to anyone anymore. Pride or shame kept them silent, maybe both. Beside Atticus walked his treasured mother, and though she kept her chin high and her eyes fixed forward, I knew in my bones she wouldn't last the night. Her breathing came in wet rattles, her paws dragging, her life pouring out in invisible threads. We were a parade of the damned. Mina, the only human among us, stumbled through the dark with nothing but a ripped cloak and trembling hands, trying to help where she could, but even she, strong as she was, could only do so much. She braced Atticus when he faltered, held the heads of those who vomited up black bile, whispered things none of us could bear to hear. She never complained, never wept, just kept walking. And all the while the snow fell in soft spirals around us, burying the ruins of Terranova behind us, erasing our footprints as if we'd never existed at all. I knew Asterion hated us, loathed us for what we'd done, and Cassian's silence burned louder than any words. They would not welcome us easily. Not after the lives we'd taken, the betrayals, the horrors we'd carved into the very earth. It would be a fight just to be let inside their gates, let alone to be offered sanctuary. But still, I prayed. I prayed to every god I could remember, and even the ones I couldn't. I prayed they would open their arms. I prayed they would forgive. Because I wasn't walking for myself. I wasn't walking for redemption. I was walking for my mate, for Atticus. My beloved, too soft for this cruel world, too kind for the things we'd forced him to endure. And though his body bled, though his legs buckled, still he walked with us. For us, always for us. And I would drag him through 1,000 more forests, teeth broken, paws split, if it meant saving him. 3 days. 3 days of dragging what remained of our broken pride through the forest, through cold ash and half-melted snow, through lands that didn't want us. I couldn't even tell if the howling wind was real anymore, or just the screams in my head. My paws bled. The bones in my back shifted wrong every time I moved. Still, I crawled. I crawled. I didn't know if I was leading them, or if we were just drifting together like ghosts. Mina's steps faltered with each hour. Her human frame never meant for this. And Atticus, gods. Atticus wouldn't last another night. I watched him curled on the makeshift cot behind me, the rise and fall of his chest so shallow it barely stirred the ragged cloth draped over him. My mate, my moonlight, my everything. I could barely look at him without breaking. We had already buried 6. Too weak to dig proper graves, we left them where they fell, branches laid over their bodies. A ritual as hollow as the silence we kept. No one spoke anymore. Not after the second night. When the tree line finally broke, and the scent of wolf hit the air, iron and smoke and power, I knew we'd reached them. The lions and the wolves. Noah. I should have hated him. But I no longer had the strength. I stepped forward, the last of my pride stripped from me like skin from bone. My legs buckled beneath me, the old injury flaring like fire, my body nothing more than twisted sinew and memories of a life I'd squandered. The wolves stared. Their weapons weren't drawn, not yet, but I saw the tension in their postures. They didn't trust us. Why should they? I lifted my gaze to Cassian, that golden mane catching the light like judgment itself. Cassian. My voice cracked like dried bark. Noah. It hurt to say his name. I beg you. My legs trembled, my pride splintered. My voice dropped to a whisper as I sank to my knees. Save my mate. Behind me, the cot creaked under Atticus's frail form. I heard someone gasp. Maybe it was me. I pressed my head to the dirt, a tiger bowing before a lion, before a wolf. It should have killed me, but there was no more war in me, no more righteousness, only the fear of losing him, only the weight of every wrong I couldn't undo. I am Vindictus, I rasped, coughing blood into the soil. And I no longer have the strength to be your enemy. The silence that followed was unbearable. I dared to lift my gaze, tears cutting streaks through the dirt on my face. I met Noah's eyes, and for the first time in my life, I showed him the one thing I swore I'd never let anyone see. The truth. Please, I choked out, my voice a raw, ruined thing. Please, save my mate. And with that last plea, my body gave out, collapsing at his feet. Nothing left but bones, blood, and the crumbling ruins of a pride that once stood tall. I woke, gasping, heart slamming against my ribs. What happened? Where was I? I looked around the room frantically, my pulse skyrocketing. Did we make it? Did the others make it? I had collapsed, just as I watched Cassian take a step forward, and then, nothing. Now, light filtered through the cracks in the wooden shutters, warm and golden, dust motes dancing lazily in the air. The room was small but solid. Wooden beams stretched across the ceiling, the walls paneled in rough cedar that gave off a earthy scent. A heavy oak dresser stood in one corner, its surface cluttered with bandages, a basin of water, and a folded cloth still damp. The bed beneath me creaked when I moved, the quilt scratchy against my skin. The smell hit me next, wolf. Thick and pungent, it clung to everything, singeing my nostrils and crawling beneath my skin. It was dominance and wilderness, power barely restrained. My breath hitched, and instinct screamed at me to run, to bare my teeth, to submit. And then I saw him, Atticus. He lay beside me, breathing steady, his chest rising and falling like the rhythm of the earth itself. Color had returned to his cheeks, faint but unmistakable, and his lips were no longer pale and cracked. His body, once so thin I feared every breath might be his last, looked whole again, stronger. The curse no longer ravaged him. I almost wept. With shaking hands, I tugged him into my arms, crushing him against me. My face buried itself into the curve of his neck, breathing him in, and the dam inside me broke. I cried, harder than I ever had in my life. Great, ragged sobs tore through me until I thought I might choke on them. My shoulders shook, my chest ached, but I couldn't stop. He was alive. My mate. Alive. Atticus stirred faintly against me, a soft sound leaving his throat, not pain this time, but something tender. His hand, still weak, brushed clumsily against my jaw. "Vindictus," he whispered. I clutched him tighter, trembling so hard the furs slipped off my shoulders. Don't you dare speak. Just breathe. That's all I need from you." A low voice cleared from the doorway. "You're lucky." I lifted my head, still shaking, to find Noah standing there. His golden hair caught the torchlight, his expression troubled. Behind him, wolves lingered in the hall, strong, watchful, their weapons lowered but never far. The noble pack had taken us in, though war still simmered like an old scar between us. "What did you do?" My voice cracked with desperation. How is he?" "We broke the curse. Mina told us everything." "Luckily, Elias was here to fix it," Noah said simply. His eyes flicked toward Atticus, then back to me. "Our healers worked through the night. They gave more than they should have." I swallowed hard, tears still wet on my cheeks. "Why? Why would you help us?" For the first time, Noah's gaze softened, though his posture stayed rigid. "Because sometimes, even old enemies are worth saving. And because no one deserves to die like that, not even your mate." My throat closed. I pressed my forehead back against Atticus's temple, my tears soaking into his hair. Gratitude and disbelief warred inside me, leaving me raw. I wanted to thank him, to kneel again if I had to. But all I could do was hold Atticus tighter, my whole body trembling with relief. The wolf shifted in the silence, murmurs rippling through them. But I didn't care. My mate lived. And for the first time in years, I let myself believe we might survive this.